Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bxb'S Bits and Bobs, episode 34, a colon for Halloween. And I think that title will become clear as the podcast progresses. Richard looked very confused when I said that, but that's fine because Richard's back. Reviews editor Richard after his trip away last time. I forget. I think you just being destroyed from work, weren't you? Mostly. Why you couldn't come last
where
time?
was I? I can't remember what I was doing.
Yeah, you were.
I was probably in Birmingham, was I? No, that was last
I've
week.
been in Birmingham. Weirdly, I've been in Birmingham as well recently. We've all been in Birmingham, except Joel. Joel's not cool enough to go to Birmingham.
Yeah, I saw your hotel. I sort of stalked you after the fact.
After I'd left, because it was you arrived the day after I left, which is such a shame because me and Richard have been BXB compatriots for like how many years have we been? Like probably since almost the beginning. Since almost the beginning, we were on the same website, and then we've been on and off the staff side of things for probably the best part of 10 years. And we've never met in person, have we?
Was it like 2002 Bxb'S started?
But we weren't always on staff, were we?
No.
So that
we were
pretty
always
early
around from around that time. So
yes, we've always our paths have crossed for about that's been about 13, 14 years, something like that, since the beginning of the original BXB or Brit Xbox.
That's longer than my marriage, Ben.
Yeah, longer than I've known my wife as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Wow. And we've never met in person. So it would have been
or anything.
It would have been awesome to have met you in Birmingham, but sadly close, but not quite. Very close.
Well, I stood in the spot where you would have been, and I thought Ben was
You took in my leftover smell.
Yeah.
You're kind of like a testament to long-term online relationships, you two. Look at how well they can work.
If you never meet the person, that's the key. Never actually, like they say, don't meet your heroes, don't meet your friends from Xbox gaming. That's probably a good rule of thumb in general, really, isn't it? Joel's here as well, Home Counties editor.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, there he is.
Yeah, that was my introduction.
I don't always introduce myself, so I'll introduce myself as well. I'm your host, editor-in-chief Ben from bxbgames.co.uk. Please go to the website; that'd be nice. Do you know? Talking about things though, I've been clearing out a lot. I've got a skip at the moment at my house, and we're like doing a big clear out. And I found my press pass from 2007 going to Leipzig for the Gamescom, which is pretty cool.
10 years.
That was 10 years ago. Yeah. That was fucking awesome, though, I have to say. It was one of the coolest things I've ever done with video games. I'd love to go back to Germany. But yeah, that was back when they'd let anybody in, basically. So before they fully tightened up things. But yeah. That was Mark and Mike, Andy. Yeah, we all went. It was 4 of us, wasn't it? Anyway, a trip down memory lane. I'm getting old, I think, Richard, as well. Dwelling on the past a little bit. Yeah.
We are all getting old.
We are all getting old. Joel,
stop it. You're segueing into the fact that I had a birthday this week and I'm now actually older by a year, aren't you? That's where you're digging with it.
A little bit, yeah. How old are you now?
34.
You're not as old as Richard then, I don't think.
No, I'm 39.
Wow! That's crazy. You're super old, Richard. I'm the baby of the bunch, just 33. Oh, man, I feel invigorated from that news. Fantastic. Should we talk about like what we've been up to before we get into games news? There's so much to talk about this week, guys. It's going to be a long one. As I warned the chaps a minute ago, I'm warning you as the listener and the viewer that you're going to be here for a while. So strap in and prepare yourselves. But Richard, first of all, I wanted to tell you I'm back into wrestling.
Yeah, I saw that, and I kind of want to follow you into the hole again. We haven't watched wrestling.
It's welcoming.
For God knows how long. I think we're still halfway through No Mercy. What was that, a month ago?
Oh, that's
so we're still kind of keeping up with pay-per-views ish, but not watching anything else. So no NXT for months.
No, I will. So yeah, what got me in was the Hell in a Cell card and the result. I was like, oh, that's quite cool. But then the big news, the Shield is back, and that is what brought me back in to watch that reunion on Raw. And I've watched the last 2 Raws now, and the last SmackDown, and I'm looking forward to TLC. But did you hear about the crazy news? What's happened with a bunch of wrestlers due to a viral infection?
Oh no, what's happened?
So it started off with Bo Dallas and JoJo, who it's kind of this weird thing. Bray and Bo are brothers, right? Not for real brothers. Not that their wrestling characters are connected in any way, but in real life they're brothers, and they will live together, or at least very close. And JoJo is Bray's. She's the ring announcer, and she's Bray's other half. And they've all gone down with some kind of viral infection, so they've been quarantined basically by the WWE to prevent the spread through the whole locker room. But it sounds like Roman has come down with it, and he's now like been sidelined from TLC and pulled out of the pay-per-view entirely to be placed by Kurt Angle for his first time in the ring after 11 years absence.
I saw Kurt Angle was coming back. He does not look in shape.
It was clearly not planned, and I suspect he won't be doing much in this match. No. But you know, it's TLC, so you can, you know, the table as a crutch. You can do some showy spots that don't require too much actual activity. So I'm sure it'd be fun though to see him back in the ring after 11 years absence. But that also means we get an awesome match as well. As well as that match, we're going to get Finn Balor, who was meant to be going up against Bray, against AJ Styles, which is that's a pretty awesome match, especially as that's Raw v SmackDown, and that doesn't normally happen in the single branded pay-per-view age we now have. That will only happen usually at Survivor Series. So that match, you know, two ex-leaders of the Bullet Club from New Japan Pro, so that should be a really, really good match. So that's worked out well for the fans. But I don't want to dwell on wrestling too much, because I think if we do, Joel will kill himself.
Was it only three wrestlers who got ill
so far?
But I thought this was the start of like the story for the second division game or something. The second outbreak.
Well, the thing is,
fake, isn't it?
Well, we don't know. You see, there's a lot of rumors going around, but the rumor was it's quite serious. That they thought at first it was viral meningitis, which would be a really dangerous and serious thing if true. So I hope the rest of us get well.
From that.
You can really, because it affects your brain as well, meningitis. So yeah, it's a very serious thing. But we don't exactly know what it is. That WWE are very cagey. They're not really talking about what's going on, as is the way they do things. Like they keep kayfabe over the weirdest shit, and then they'll break kayfabe over like the most minor bollocks. So it's like I don't understand their thinking half the time. But yeah, I'm back in, helped by the fact that WWE 2K18 is out and better than last year's, and I've been playing that. But we'll talk about that when we talk about the games we've been playing. But yeah, that's been good.
Even better than last year's, eh?
Last year's, I fucking hated last year's. Last year's was terrible, wasn't it? So no, it's definite improvement over last year's, in my opinion. Though that seems to go against quite a few other people's opinions on it. So what else have you guys been up to? Joel and Richie and me, everybody, we've all seen Blade Runner.
Yep.
We all saw the new one, didn't we?
I saw Blade Runner to the max. I saw it in IMAX in 3D. It was splendid.
That must have been awesome. Didn't you? Yeah. You saw it in IMAX as well, didn't you, Joel?
Yeah, but not 3D, just IMAX 2D, which I would argue is better than IMAX 3D.
It's one extra D. It can't be.
Well, I saw it just normal 2D, so I'm clearly just a pleb and inconsequential. But me and Joel did talk about this last time. But I was just curious, Richard, where you weighed in again with this one, because I know you watched the original as well before going to see it again, didn't you?
Yeah, I watched it like I think the day before.
That's what I did, yeah.
Because not so much for me, but for the wife, because she forgets films that she's seen a lot. So we had to watch it again, really. And for something like that, it's worth watching again anyway, to remind yourself the things that you aren't sure about. Is he? Isn't he? You know what I mean? Yeah. So going into 2049, I was fully prepped. I suppose that gives you a good indication going in of whether or not it matches up or not, and it does. It does match up to the original. I thought the pacing was really clever, really well done. It was a very long film, but didn't feel like it was dragging itself out at any point. It filled the time with everything that it needed to do. Didn't cut any corners with choppy action sequences. It just let everything draw out with that slow, ponderous pace that Blade Runner always had, and the 70s and 80s films always had. You don't get it anymore. So it's nice to see something that was reveling within itself a bit instead of trying to get itself over with. But not just a rehash of the story either. It actually took it somewhere interesting as well. I don't want to spoil it by giving more details than that, but yeah, really good.
I agree with you to a point. I think the pacing of the original works because you find Harrison Ford such a compelling and interesting multi-layer character, and I think the pacing in 2049 doesn't work as well because I found it's Officer K, isn't it?
Yeah.
I found him far less interesting and compelling, especially as you get that early, not really a revelation. You find out the nature of the man very early on, shall we say?
Yeah.
And that basically means there's no mystery to it. And I was just kind of like, oh, well, don't care.
Oh no, there was kind of a mystery.
Well, there's that third act twist where it's just sort of like that's kind of like, oh wow, kick the guy in the balls. He's just got the shit literally kicked out of him, and then you're gonna tell him that. Oh damn, that's harsh. But yeah,
I thought they spun that out pretty well because I don't know, maybe if you weren't paying attention, you might not pick up on that until the end, and then it's kind of out of nowhere. But if you're paying close attention, that sort of stuff is telegraphed early on, and you think, is he? Isn't he? Where has he come from? So yeah, I enjoyed that.
I think what I enjoyed was the fact that there's a character throughout the film that is there just to tell him what he wants to hear, and the fact that leads into the psyche and the decision and where he ends up, and yeah, I like that. And look, you can't deny it looked amazing and it sounded amazing, and oh my god, like the cinematography and the sound design in that film was some of the best I've ever seen and heard. It just left me a bit cold. I want to see it again, and maybe I'll enjoy it a bit more. But yeah, I felt like it was a bit of a hollow kind of reflection of the original.
I absolutely loved it. I really loved it, to the point that it's probably the first film I would want to watch on a new TV if I would get my 4K TV.
You need to sort that out, Richard. You need to sort that out. Come on, we've all got one.
Yeah.
What's going on, Rich? You're normally the first to get them.
Yeah.
What's going on?
The wife is being difficult on this one. It will happen.
It's what divorce is for, mate. It's what divorce is for. You can have the kids, the dog. I just want the TV.
Yeah, and no house to put it in.
Well, there is that. Yeah, there is. The downsides. There's pros and cons. I guess I'm going to ask you guys, have either of you seen Baby Driver?
Yeah, I loved it.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, right. This is one of the few films where I turned it off halfway because I found it awful. I was so bored.
What is wrong with you?
I was so bored. So I got to like midway through the second act, I'm guessing. And I felt nothing for the main character, and I just was like, this is dull. Like what the second act where they're trying to force this romantic subplot down your throat, and I'm just like, I just want car chases. That's what this film was meant to be about. So I didn't even get to the finale, which I'm assuming is amazing. But I just thought the musical choices and all of that were just so on the nose and dull, and everything was just so fucking like, what happened to Edgar Wright's style in this movie? There was just zero of the director's look that you've grown to enjoy from his previous films. It was just the most sort of homogenized, Hollywoodized piece of crap I've ever seen. I was so bored, Richard. I gave up.
That's insane.
I thought I was going to love it. I thought I was going to love it.
But... That is insane.
Yeah. It just totally missed for me. I really thought it was going to be excellent. And I just destroyed. That's it. I'm done with Edgar Wright. Clearly it only works if he's doing a film with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. The rest of the time it's shit. So I'm done with him. Yeah, that's it. So you're that's it. You're done, Ed. You're dead. You're dead to me. You're dead. Have you seen it, Joel?
No. But I might have to watch it now just to help me pick sides in this argument. Really.
That is so strange. Honestly, I don't know what to say to you after that.
Why did you love it?
Well, for all the reasons that you're wrong. It is pure Edgar Wright. You can tell instantly, even without Pegg and Frost on screen, it does look like an Edgar Wright movie in every frame. And
no, it doesn't.
It's not on the nose. What do you mean by that?
I just thought the music choices were really insipid and bass and dull, and I was expecting them to be a bit more off the wall and interesting. I just found it all really obvious, and I guess to a lot of people that music that he chooses is unfamiliar. I was, however, familiar with 90% of the tracks, and I just thought it was all kind of a bit like, made for an American audience, perhaps. Made for a safe American audience. It was obviously his attempt to break out, into the mainstream and get a wider appeal. And I think because of that, it just sands off all the edges that make Edgar Wright stuff interesting.
No, I couldn't disagree more with you.
Good.
I'm not
I'm
sure
glad.
about the music choices. I don't think that they needed to be more esoteric than they were. And I think
Just interesting.
the way that they were employed was unique in itself. It was not a safe movie. The way that the entire thing is basically a musical without any singing in it, that is not safe. It
Also,
probably shouldn't work.
That lead actor, Ansel something, just like a charisma vacuum, just like a cipher of a human being. Like there was just every time he came on the screen, I just glazed over. You know, Kevin Spacey was great fun. John Hamm was great fun. Jamie Foxx was great fun, and really like chewing up the scenery and being interesting to watch, and you know, playing against type for themselves and stuff like that to a degree, especially with John Hamm.
Yeah.
The rest, but he was just like, oh god, so boring. But all right, I do seem to be in the minority about this. Most people I've spoken to about it since are like, what is wrong with you? But yeah, so I was kind of expecting you to not agree with me. But
yeah, I mean, the main character, I don't know. He is supposed to be this quiet sort of canvas for you to inhabit in a way.
You're saying he's meant to be the point of view of for the audience, but
well, he's your way in, and he's quiet because the music speaks for him.
I don't think this is a film that needed a way in though, because you know when you're talking about that sort of storytelling strategy, you do that with something that's maybe a genre movie that's very off the wall or complex or sci-fi or something like that. This is just a film about a criminal and car chases. It's not something that's hard to grasp. You don't really need a audience point of view as a character in the film. So I just think he was just dull.
It's not a deep movie.
Not very well acted.
It's really just it's a vehicle for the concept of a musical. It's a musical ride, really. The whole thing is set to the tempo and rhythm of the music that's playing in every scene. The whole thing is
that's the thing, isn't it? I mean,
around the music.
You look at Edgar Wright's the Cornetto trilogy, and they're all high concept, right? Yeah. And they're all quite complicated in genre. And then you go to Baby Driver, which is, like you said, it's meant to be the most accessible thing he's ever made. But I think by making it so accessible, he's just made it very bland, which is the problem I have with it.
I don't know. Maybe you expected something else from it. And more layers.
I expected an Edgar Wright movie.
There aren't any layers to it.
No, I expected an Edgar Wright movie, and I didn't get that. I got a McG movie, if you're lucky.
Not a McG movie. I did watch.
I think actually, to be fair to McG, I think Rush Hour is actually a better film than Baby Driver. So, are we all up to date with Star Trek Discovery?
No, I'm 2 episodes in. How many are out now?
You, 4. Yeah, I'm up to date. I've watched all 4.
That last one left me with a bit of a sour taste. I was not happy about the 2 F-bombs that got dropped by Starfleet officers.
What?
I have to say, I was kind of like, this is not Star Trek. This is just not. That's just wrong. What did you think, Joel?
So I'd say the first. I don't want to spoil too much because Richard's obviously not seen the 2 most recent episodes, but the 2 more recent episodes are obviously moving much more into what Star Trek Discovery is going to be and setting its identity. The first 2 are kind of just a setup, aren't they? They're just it's kind of introducing the characters and things and well, most of the characters and setting some background for how you get there. I think it's okay. As a fan of sort of the next generation, I'm enjoying it, but it's still, I'm still kind of like, it's not quite 100% what I want from Star Trek, but I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt for the moment.
Yeah, go on.
All I was going to say is I'm still very impressed with the production quality of it, though. I really do love that side of it. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, I like the moral ambiguity that we're experiencing on board the Discovery, and that this is a darker time for the Federation due to the fact that they're at war with the Klingons. And I liked the central plot of the episode with prisoners of war and getting to discover how Klingons treat them and stuff like that. I just was really upset about fuck being used by Starfleet officers. I feel like at this point in the future, that shouldn't even be part of the vocabulary of an enlightened race, which is what the Federation and humans are meant to be at this point. So it's like, what did they look that up somewhere? Like, and oh, I'm going to use the F-bomb because that'll be funny, like some kind of weird relic. And it didn't feel like that. It felt conversational, and it felt very strange to hear that. I know it's a minor thing in some ways, but I think it speaks to the larger kind of shift that this Star Trek show represents. This sort of modernization, but perhaps going too far. We'll see where it goes, the series. I'm still going to watch it. Still going to watch it every week. I look forward to the episodes coming out, but yeah, weird. Yeah. Anything else, Richard? Would you see? Can you imagine a Starfleet officer just fucking it all over the place, fucking it up?
It's a bit
fucking
weird,
around.
Yeah,
doesn't make.
I don't know.
Especially,
I don't
especially
mind
as
them. I don't mind them doing something a bit different with Star Trek. I mean,
it needs.
It's kind of left me cold for the past few.
I think we may have lost him.
Yeah. Oh no, no.
Star Trek's kind of old. If they just mix it up with something a bit, fine.
The problem for me in the scene with the F-bomb was that it feels very much like, oh, we know we're on demand digital, we're on Netflix and CBS, whatever their streaming services, so we can get around the network television rules. So let's say fuck, ha ha ha, we're edgy. And it just felt very non-plot. It wasn't plot related. It just felt very much like we can say it, so let's say it. Which is just weird, like, and unnecessary, and
that is strange.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Anyway, we should probably move on.
You don't even get it in the movie, do you, where you could if you wanted to. So,
well, what about when? It just always makes me think of in Voyage Home when a guy goes to him, calls him a dumbass, doesn't he? And he goes, "Double dumbass on you," is how Kirk responds, because he doesn't understand profanity at that point. And it's like, just to see it so casually tossed. And you've got to remember, the Kirk timeline starts only 10 years after Discovery. And it's sort of like, okay, so we get from there to there, how exactly? Like, that's only 10 years. So it's very strange.
Yeah.
Strange.
Kirk's not known for his sheltered upbringing, really. So...
No, he's the rebel. He's the rogue
exactly.
rebel. He reads history. He's fully immersed in all of that. So, you know, if anybody was going to use foul language, it would be him. But he doesn't, like, ever. That never even crosses his mind, because he's an enlightened human. So, you know, it's curious. It's curious that they went for that.
Different timelines. Isn't it?
Well, no, it's meant to be the core timeline, Richard. Discovery is meant to be 10 years before TOS. So it's meant to all fit in the same universe. Don't ask me how at this point, but it is meant to. That is what they've said. But anyway, I'm getting super nerdy here. Like, really, you can tell I'm a Trekkie. I can't.
Yeah,
I can't hide
I
it.
saw you twitch when I said that. It's like, what? See, I'm alive.
I saw a lot of really average movies, it would seem, in the last couple of weeks. I saw the Kingsman: The Golden Circle, which was just totally unnecessary and nowhere near as fun as the original, and just why, like, a lot less money on the screen. Like, they clearly had a smaller budget, and it shows, and it's just you guys, neither of you have seen that, have you? I wouldn't rush.
No, I was not that fussed about the first one either, really.
I think the first one works as like because it's a story of a kid discovering who and what he is. So the sequel was then, it didn't have anywhere near the same kind of strong direction or sort of character arc or anything like that in there, and it just felt a bit meandering and a bit pointless. It's still the same director and the same writing team and everything, and actors for the most part, but yeah, it was just a bit meh. And then Joel, this one I want to talk to you about. I saw Transformers: The Last Night.
I have nothing to say to you. I can't even believe you'd bother watching those films.
Have you seen it? Have you seen this new one?
No, I gave up after like the first two of the Michael Bay. They're awful. They'll progressively get worse. They'll be crap. I can't believe you wasted time on it.
Well, yeah, and there was a lot of time as well. It was nearly 3 hours of time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really long film. I watch a lot of films, guys, but I've never been so confused as I have watching this film. It literally, there is characterization that makes no sense. There is dialogue that makes no sense. There are bits where they refer to things that have clearly been cut in the edit. And it's just like, I literally don't know what's going on half the time watching that film. Like, it flies all the way around the world, millions of locations, so much money you can see on the screen, so much money is spent, amazing special effects. And the weird thing is, I know Michael Bay can make good films, because last night, weirdly, I had a Michael Bay double bill. I watched Transformers, and then I watched 13 Hours, the true story of these 6 CIA hired operatives in Benghazi defending their, the diplomatic outpost there. That was a small film Michael Bay made, I think, a couple of years back. And it's really, really fucking good. Cohesive, great action, great characters, based on a true story, grounded, really, really well put together. And the one thing Michael Bay does incredibly well is he shoots hardware amazingly, right? He can make a vehicle or guns or buildings or anything like that look just stunning, like ultra real. And
he started in adverts, though, didn't he? And that's what he should be doing.
Products. He shoots product really well. I think that's a good way of describing it, actually. A hardware product, same sort of thing. But, like, man, Transformers is a mess. Just like, what the fuck was that film? I still don't know what happened. I've sat here for hours now trying to process Transformers the last night. No, I haven't really. But at the same time, I feel like you need to do that. It is just, man. I will say, though, Bumblebee speaks with his own voice for the first time, and it's quite touching. But the rest of it,
don't care.
Not so much.
Yeah. Don't care. It's so annoying. They could so easily just make a half-decent Transformers film. They just want to do like a surface-level Transformers movie. It doesn't have to be anything deep. Just
the next one is going to be this 80s set Bumblebee story, just about Bumblebee. In the kind of a bit like, it sounds a bit like they're taking it down the Herbie route almost. That he's going to be this young rocket chick's car in the 80s, and they're going to go on a madcap adventure together. And maybe that's what you want, Richard. That sounds pared back, simple.
No, that sounds terrible.
No, okay. I will say that the woman playing the main role, Haley Steinfeld, she's got good comedic acting chops. She's fairly decent. So that could be something, I suppose. But yeah, don't watch The Last Night, Matt, or watch it just because.
I'll watch it when it's free on Netflix or something, because I'm curious.
Yeah,
but
it's such a
strange,
confusing mess. Yeah, I
think the point where I jumped off of those movies was when one of the Transformers had bollocks. Which one was that?
I want to say 3.
I think it might be the second. I think it might be the second one. I think I can remember seeing that bit. Yeah.
I will say the first one is still a great film. The first one is still really good. I really enjoyed that first movie.
Oh,
I still really enjoy the first.
Jesus, Ben, you've disappointed me dramatically in the last 5 minutes.
You're a Transformers nerd. I mean,
yeah, I know.
And that's Gen 1 and square looking and weird.
No, not at all. I just think I don't understand. There is kind of like a really easy story to Transformers, which is literally they came to planet Earth to look for Energon, and why no one's just used that as a story. Instead, they keep making up the Bright Spark and all this other shit. They build layers, they build up on top of it. It's just far too far away from a simple thing. Yeah.
Turns out Earth is a transformer. The planet is a transformer called Unicron.
Fuck off.
And the whole planet is actually a transformer.
We're not talking about this anymore because
how crazy
let's
is
move
that?
on. This is just shit. Unicron was a thing that ate moons. He is not fucking. Right. Anyway.
Yep. It's true now. It's canon, Joel. You just have to accept it. Move on.
It's canon in the sense that I'm going to light it and shoot it somewhere.
All right. Shall we talk about some video game stuff? Should we get onto the news? There's been a lot of news in the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
News and controversy and topics and. We've got. And was there anything you wanted to touch on, Richard? It sounds like you wanted to bring something up before we moved on.
No. I was just looking at Joel's list, and we've missed a bit out. But
have we? What have we missed? Joe didn't say anything. What have we missed, Joel? What have I missed?
Of what? The films, though. I had watched Life, but I'm not really sure it's worth talking about, to be honest. I don't know if you two have seen Life.
Yes, I have.
From earlier this year. I watched it, and yeah, it started off. I was quite interested in it right at the beginning because it seemed like it was very science focused about. Well, it seemed very sensible. They'd found life on Mars and what they were going to do, and then within like the first 10 minutes, it descended into like, they find life on Mars and they've got this sample, and they want to bring it back for analysis, but they don't want to bring it back to Earth because of the risk, so they do it on the International Space Station. All of this felt rather, this is kind of grounded. Yeah. Like top brass have thought about this, and this is what would really happen. And then within about 10 minutes, it all goes to shit, and it's just like, this is awful. Yeah, do
you know?
Visually, it was okay, but ugh.
Yeah, it reminded me of a quite bad found footage movie I watched called Apollo 13. Which was about an Apollo mission, the last Apollo mission, as it were, that was scrubbed from the books that went to the moon.
Oh, that's Apollo 18 or 19 or something, not 18? Apollo 13. Yeah, something like that,
Apollo
isn't it?
13 is the big project.
I was going to say that's a Tom Hanks one. I didn't think that was that bad.
No, you're right. I'm sorry, Apollo 18 or 19 or something like that. You are correct. And they found like the aliens on that were evil spider creatures on the moon, and they look like rocks. And the reason it reminded me of that was the whole kind of extraterrestrial life element, but also the totally unearned downbeat ending, which is that life has this like super downbeat ending, but it's so telegraphed and predictable, and then it happens, and you're just like, at no point did you deserve to try and have an ending with pathos like this. It doesn't work with a film that's been this bad throughout. And it's kind of a shame because the cast involved is really good. Like, there's some really good actors in this film. Like, Rebecca Ferguson is very, very good, and Jake Gyllenhaal's good, and Ryan Reynolds is good, and like, there's loads of good actors. And then it just kind of becomes the most obvious bullshit ever, doesn't it?
It is obvious bullshit.
It's not even scary.
It's kind of okay because it's quite visceral more than anything, and I enjoyed it for that. Just the way that first step is just like, oh my god.
Yeah, well, you had to say visceral, didn't you, Richard?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No. Visceral. Oh, we can talk about that first if you like. We'll
skillful segue, I think.
He queued that up without even realizing.
I know.
You pro, you
genius.
Look at that. You can tell he's read the show notes. So that from one bad film to some bad news, like really shitty news. EA have shit-canned Visceral, which, to put it another way, they've closed Visceral Games, which they bought quite a while back now, I guess. Visceral Games famously developed Dead Space series of games, and we're working now with Amy Hennig, formerly of Naughty Dog, to create a single-player focused, story-driven Star Wars experience, which has been in development for about 3 years now, and that's now, using their awful term, pivoting to a more service-based, non-single-player, loot box-driven. I'm extrapolating now, probably. But it's not going to be the Uncharted Star Wars game we always wanted, by the sounds of things. And I suspect Amy Hennig will be out the door before long as well. But yeah, Visceral are dead. This really sucks.
It seriously.
I'm bummed about this.
I can't believe they've done that when, the whole point of this game was because it was a Star Wars single-player adventure. It fitted into their catalogue against all of the other multiplayer stuff that they're doing. They don't need to pivot this. They've got all the other stuff coming out. And with Amy Hennig at the helm of it, really, was this going to not work? Of course it was going to be good. So I'm really bummed out about it.
It's not about it not being good, Richard, is it? It's about money. It's about money. How do you continue to monetize a single player only experience?
Why do you need to?
It's very difficult to do.
Why do you need to
sell it?
This is a Star Wars game. Was it not going to sell? Of course it was.
Doesn't matter. 6 million units, 10 million units, 12 million units probably wouldn't be enough. Not after 3 years of development time. Not after a huge team. They don't need to. But they want to make money out of this, and they want a system that will continue. Loot boxes. I'm thinking microtransactions, DLCs, season passes, things like that. Ways in which they can continue to make money out of the product.
Calls into question. So what's Battlefront then? Yeah. To EA, if it isn't that.
Oh no, of course it is, but they want more of that.
Yeah.
They just want more. That's what it is. They No, that's exactly what Battlefront is. It's all loot box driven progression, from what I've heard from the beta. I didn't play it myself. I know you did, Joel. But yeah, that they want more of that. Their statement. I mean, we could bring it up now and probably read it, but it's along the lines of, oh, we're pivoting this because we've done market research that shows that consumers and gamers want something that will keep them interested and hooked for years, rather than just a short single-player experience. Because what they mean is a single-player experience that can be played, completed, and traded in, which then hurts our bottom line even further.
Sorry, that's Richard rattling around in his fridge.
Yeah, what the fuck, Richard?
He's getting a beer. Sorry. You need something to take the edge off the bitter bad news, I think.
The bitter taste of Visceral.
The thing I don't get about the statement is, like, I get what the reason they come up with as you sort of read it out there. That's just like, that's Battlefront. So are you are they trying to convert this into another Battlefront, or is that a statement saying that Battlefront is where they want their focus to lie and they don't really care?
I can tell you where I think it's going. It's going to be an open world game. It'll be an open world game like Mordor, like Shadow of War, which we've been playing this last couple of weeks, Joe. I mean, that's where they want to take it. With open world games, you can do all kinds of things to monetize them, can't you? Whereas, if you've got an Uncharted game, a strongly narrative-focused A to B to C single-player action-adventure game, that's very much a linear experience. How do you monetize that? If it doesn't even have multiplayer. It's very limited, though. I mean, and DLC takes a lot of development cost and time to implement. So they want something they want something they can have money coming in from the moment you buy that game. So you can be buying your loot boxes and your microtransactions, and your cosmetics and your XP boosters and your coin doublers. They want something that you can do that from the moment you put the disc in, or download the title.
I'll tell you what, fuck those guys, because I'm not interested in what they want. I'm the consumer. No. They can make me my fucking Star Wars game that I want.
And this is the other aspect of this, isn't it, Richard? It's like, that is very true, and there's a lot of people pissed off about this online right now. But the only thing that EA will understand is if you don't buy their games, and that's not gonna happen, because they have FIFA, and they have Madden, and they have Need for Speed, and they have Battlefront, which will all sell multiple millions of units before the end of the year. So why would they not do this?
I kind of get it. I mean, if you look at what happened to Mirror's Edge last year.
Yeah. And that was an open world game, but that was a very niche open world game that wasn't, Richard, to be fair, it wasn't very good.
For years.
It wasn't very good. That wasn't a great experience, in my opinion. But you have to ask yourself, maybe, why did DICE make it an open world game? Is it because EA pushed them to, because they thought it would be more of a seller in that genre?
No,
right?
I think it made sense for Mirror's Edge to be open world. The original should have been more like that.
No, I don't know. I think that was an incredibly dull open world in Mirror's Edge.
I'm not saying it was good, but the concept of Mirror's Edge lends itself to open world very well.
Okay. But this is very. This is
why they'd be bummed out about it, because people were asking for that for years, and then nobody bought that game.
But this is, and let's talk about Visceral, right? So Visceral was a studio that was folded into EA. It's actually it was their only studio based at their headquarters, which that means they now have an EA headquarters, which doesn't have a game development studio in it anymore. Work that one out. But yeah, so this was a studio folded in around the time, I remember this very well, when EA came out and said, we're going to be experimental. This is the time Mirror's Edge got greenlit, the first one. Yeah. We're going to try new properties. We're going to create new licenses and new franchises. And that's where Dead Space came from. And Dead Space, year on year, release on release, I should say, brought them in less money compared to higher development costs. So each subsequent release did worse than the previous one. So it's difficult. You can, and now they've spent 3 years making a Star Wars game that will never get released. And all that time, all that man-hour, all those skills, all that effort, and it's likely you won't even see any of that now in the final release. And the studio's gone. And I think Dead Space is one of the coolest franchises to come out of the 360 generation and the PS3 generation. And I'm just devastated about that, man. I'm so bummed out about that.
That's what I was going to say. I'm bummed out about this Star Wars game, but I was banking on there being a Dead Space after that Star Wars game came out. I thought they'd go back to it, and now that's never going to happen. And I'm really feeling low about that. As far as I can feel about video games, that is a blow.
I'm assuming it could still happen. It just won't be the same people who made the originals, right? EA will just palm it off to somebody else. You may not have the same passion.
I don't think they will. EA is sat upon so many dead licenses now. This is just going to be, put on top of that pile with all the rest that they won't do anything with. It's just the nature of it. And another one that might well be on that pile now, but we will see, I suppose, is Mass Effect after Andromeda. So I mean, it's like yet another mismanaged, poorly treated studio got closed, didn't it? After that game, after the problems they had with that, you have to wonder how much of that came from the publisher side of things. So yeah, it's just another in a long list of EA tragedies. This is a company now with a massive problem in its identity. I don't think EA knows what it's doing or where they're going or like anything. All they seem to know is we've got Star Wars, fuck. And we've got all these sports. Let's just do more. Just do more of that. They've got no new IP. They've got no interesting franchises that are really standing out. I'll be curious to see where Need for Speed Payback goes. Or is it called Payback? I forget what the new one is that's out this year.
I think Payback sounds about right.
Yeah, but they all sound like that, don't they? It's like they've all got that same kind of...
Can you cast your mind back to their E3 presentation where they stand out on stage and obviously they showed their new IPs coming out, so they've got Anthem and some other big things, but they also had that I can't remember the name of it, the EA indie kind of program that they stood and talked about for a while. Yeah, I wish I could remember.
Yeah, memorable, huh?
Cool. Yeah. No,
they've already got it, Joel. Don't worry.
Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't worry. Anthem is fair. Look, Anthem is a fair shout. Like I'm deriding them for not having new ideas and new IP, but it's still at the earliest the end of next year, and I suspect later than that. This Star Wars game that just got shit canned, right, was due out. I think at the earliest again, the end of next year, but most likely 2019, right? And they're pivoting it. So what does that mean? Another 2-3 years development on top of that? I mean, that's. I think that's a game we will never see. Another just gone.
What's done successfully recently that they might want to copy, but slap a Star Wars theme on it?
Well, like I said,
Battlegrounds, but with Star Wars, EA's Battlegrounds with Star Wars slapped all over it, maybe.
If they don't find a way of shoehorning in a 1 versus 100 mode into Battlefront 2, I'd be very surprised if that's not somewhere in those DLC plans. I think it's most likely an open world game, Joel, honestly. I think it will be ACO and Shadow of War based open world kind of experience in the Star Wars universe.
I kind of hope not. Yeah, Star Wars has always been a universe about visiting loads of planets and stuff. Well, I suppose they could do that in an open world format, but I think I'd go more for something like a Star Wars Mass Effect.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing with Mass Effect, it was meant to be, that was heavily inspired by Star Wars, originally, wasn't it? So. Yeah. Maybe they could lean into that. They've still obviously got the Old Republic ticking along as MMO. Maybe we get a new Knights of the Old Republic RPG. Tried out by a BioWare studio, perhaps. I mean, that would be. I wouldn't mind that. That would be cool. I love Knights of the Old Republic, amazing games, both of them. So that would be awesome. But I just feel like it'll be something more generic and something way safer. But
or it won't exist, like you say. I think that's the more likely scenario.
Quite possibly, and they just stick on Battlefront. So while we're talking about Dead Space and awesome horror games, it's that time of year. So let's bring ourselves out of the sad place right now. And I just wondered if you guys had any favorite scary games or horror games. Richard, I know you're a massive horror gamer. You love your horror games. I'm always sending them to you for review. Obviously, you're right now working on Evil Within 2, so I'm talking to you about that in a bit. But have you got any classic horror games that you go back to or have really strong, fond memories of?
Well, it's the definition of a horror game, I guess. I think the first scary game that really got me was Dungeon Master. And you wouldn't look at that now and think that's a horror game.
Is that the one where you made the dungeon? No. What was Dungeon Master?
Dungeon
Keeper,
yeah. Dungeon Master is a first-person 3D adventure. And it wasn't quite 3D. It was sort of you click a forward arrow and then it moves forward one block, and there was mummies and there was dragons and stuff in this brick network that went down 10 floors or something. And it sounds really dull, but the atmosphere that game had was insane. So you'd have torches that you'd have to carry around with your party of 4 people, and they'd all be shuffling along with all their equipment on, and they have torches in one hand, a shield, a sword in the other. And those torches might go out, they'd sort of run down over time. And you couldn't really see what was very far in front of you because all this dungeon was so dark, right? And because it wasn't proper 3D, and because you're just moving forward 1 block at a time, you'd move forward, and then suddenly there's this fucking mummy like leering at you with overblown, really badly sampled screams that freak you the shit out to the point that you throw a cup of tea across the room. And that is the most terrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. So I still think about that game. But more contemporary horror stuff. We've talked about Dead Space. That is probably it for me. Dead Space 2 is the pinnacle. One of the most intelligently crafted survival horror games because it's got a good balance of action in there. The story is really well implemented into the action. There's lots of nice little gameplay mechanics that you don't see elsewhere. The laser cutter, the splicing off of limbs, the gravity stuff, the time slowdown. There's a load of good stuff in that series that really needs a revisit, and I'm bummed out that we're not going to see another one.
I agree. I think Dead Space 2 is the better game. I think Dead Space 1 is the scarier game.
I'm not sure. I think the scariest thing that I remember from the Dead Space series is going back to the Ishimura in Dead Space 2 when it's all sort of wrapped up, everything's been cleaned out, and there's white sheets over everything, and it's all sort of darkly lit with these like broken fluorescent tubes everywhere. And yeah, that was terrifying, knowing what you'd been through in the first game, because that was so scary, and just venturing back onto it was terrifying. I loved that game.
I reviewed Dead Space 1, and it's one of the reasons I don't review horror games anymore, because I made myself finish that game, and it was just a super stressful, terrifying, horrible experience in a good way, I suppose. But I'll never forget it. I mean, it was oh my god. And the Dead Space 2 moved away from the perspective, didn't it? Dead Space 1 was kind of more pulled back, almost isometric, but definitely kind of pulled back further than the normal third person sort of action game would be. And Dead Space 2 brought the view further in and made it a bit more and tighter in and made it a bit more about the action. Yeah. But yeah, oh man, Dead Space 1 is a great game. But definitely that. And you see, you put The Last of Us on here, which I wouldn't necessarily think of as a horror game, but it definitely works. There are some very scary moments and some very creepy atmospheres in that game.
Mechanically, it's very survival horror. It's about maintaining your resources, scavenging for equipment and parts. And there are some proper scary bits in there, not all of which are related to the monsters, actually. But some of the human characters are terrifying in Last of Us. Can we spoil The Last of Us now? It's old enough, isn't it?
Yes.
That fella near the end that's hunting, what's her name? What's the girl's name?
Ellie,
yeah. Hunting her around that restaurant near the end of the game. And you see his face like peering over countertops and around tables and think shit. One glimpse of you and you're gone. And the fact that you're playing as this vulnerable girl as well, it just feels so edge of the seat scary.
You know why though, don't you, Richard?
Why?
It's because we're the Walking Dead.
Oh god. Oh, you've spoiled The Walking Dead. Is that what it means?
So, yeah,
No.
Sure. Zombies. Woohoo! No. Last of Us is just a perfectly crafted game. What about you, Joel? Do Do you ever dabble in the horrors?
Yeah. So when you put this up on the show notes, I had a bit of a think. Recent examples for me would be Soma on the PC. That's pretty. Turn the lights out, play that. That can be pretty. A lot of tension and quite scary. Resident Evil 7 in VR, like, really kind of scared me, and it didn't even really do anything. It just built this environment and tension up to the point where it's just like I literally just didn't want to leave a room. It was just kind of. I've still not gone back to it. Yeah, and then when I think really further back, like one of going back all the way, can you the original Resident Evil itself? I didn't think was too scary. The fear in that was mostly the sort of long gap between saves sometimes and the controls and things. But there was one bit, and can you remember when I played it on the PlayStation 1, the PSX, and you remember you used to open the door between rooms? It used to show those opening door animations, and they were pretty long because they were like hiding the loading sequences and stuff. So quite often you'd like put the controller down or just switch off for a minute whilst it was just showing you this door transition. And then there's one of them, it just throws it in there where the door opens, and then there's a zombie just coming through the door straight at you, and you instantly have to deal with the zombie grabbing onto you and wrestle it off and things, and it just catches you so off guard. And they only ever throw it in once in the whole game. And like at that point, you've put the controller down. You're shit like scrambling to grab the controller and fight it back off again.
I don't remember that happening.
Yeah. During the door animation, it's just opens the door and the music suddenly changes and there's a zombie. And you've opened doors 50, 60, 70 times, and it's just been a straightforward door animation. And they mix it up this time. It really catches you off guard. I remember that one.
I like it when games do that. That's good. Snatcher used to do that a bit. Has anyone played Snatcher?
No.
Hideo Kojima game before he did Metal Gear, and it's like basically a point and click game, I suppose, and it's heavily influenced by Blade Runner to the point that he probably should have been sued. But it's got Terminators in it as well, so I guess he gets away with it because he's ripped off two things.
Tell you what, that would have made 2049 more bloody interesting.
Yeah,
fucking T1000 shows up. Yeah, I'd watch a fight of that, him and Kay. That'd be all right.
But that had a funny thing in it where it's a point and click adventure, but it also had light gun compatibility. So with no notice, suddenly it would turn into a light gun shooter, and you'd be like, "Fuck, where's my gun?"
Yeah,
that was funny.
Oh man, it's just
like it when games just chuck something unexpected at you.
I think
it's something you don't see very much now, isn't it? Really, I think it's very safe when it comes to that sort of thing. Mechanics.
I mean, I've told you the Eternal Darkness story before, I think, haven't I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's probably the scariest thing that's ever happened to me in a video game. I think my heart literally did stop. It scared me that much.
So I'm going to use this as a bit of a talk about scary games. This is a bit of a stretch, but we'll go there. I just want to throw out very, very short bit of news here that Doom is coming to the Nintendo Switch on November 10th. And I am so excited.
That is pretty cool. I've still got to go back to it. I'm waiting for the Xbox One X patch before I go back now. But
the patch that isn't, because it was on the enhanced list, then it wasn't on the enhanced list, then it was on the enhanced list. So nobody's quite sure if Doom is actually going to get an Xbox One X patch at this moment. But fingers crossed it does.
Oh,
yeah, it's all.
I thought it was dead cert now. Maybe
no,
not.
I just don't know. I mean, nobody really knows anything. This enhanced list, it's like, it almost feels like a wish list from Microsoft. It's like, well, we've spoken to these devs and they seem kind of keen, so maybe at some point, like the ones on the things on the list that not necessarily at the launch, it's going to happen at some point, maybe in the future, but nobody really knows and they're not really communicating about it. So hopefully that'll get firmed up over the next 2 or 3 weeks before release. But you know what? I doubt it will. But fingers crossed Doom. But Doom on Switch, man, portable. Oh god, I can't wait to play that on a handheld. I'm going to play it on the bus, and I'm going to have little Timmy sit next to me, and I'm going to be like ripping a demon's face off, and he's going to be like, "Oh!" I was like, "Well, you shouldn't be looking at my Switch, then, you little fucker." So I can't wait to disturb small children with my Nintendo Switch. Obviously, what Nintendo's dream situation right there. That's why they made it, clearly. But no, I just want to throw that out there because I'm so hyped. My game of last year, I will bring that up every time the game comes up because I fucking love it. Do you know what? Let's talk about another horror. A horror that has been on the minds of many a gamer and an enthusiast press and a video game journalist for the last few weeks. and that's loot boxes.
Oh,
Yeah, it's all kicked off again because of mostly Shadow of War, but also Star Wars Battlefront 2, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some other things that I've got everybody freaking out about loot boxes at the moment. But the kind of the question that everybody's raising now, and I'm going to ask it to both of you, and I want a fairly succinct answer from both of you, and I'll give you mine as well. Are loot boxes gambling?
no.
Joel. All right, Richard's the first. No. Joel.
What, by legally, by the law, or
No,
my opinion?
Because by the law they are not. But what do you think right now? Oh, it's a difficult one.
So, yeah, I don't know. Kind of.
You see, for me, I'm with Richard on the no front, because the main issue for me is that I don't see them as gambling because you always get something from them. Yes. Whereas gambling in its truest sense means you could put money up and get nothing in return. Now, that's in the sense of gambling that, you know, society has taught us it means. However, there are elements of gambling to loot boxes, some more than others, depending on how clear that developer makes what the potential contents of the box can be. And there is obviously an element of chance to what you're going to get for your money. So, you know, a chance-based game, that is gambling in another sense of the word. However, I don't think it really is. It's a tricky one, isn't it? And people are really up in arms about this right now.
It's kind of gambling, but if you apply that to loot boxes, then you also have to apply it to a myriad of other things that children do that they're allowed to do at the moment. And
such as going and buying a packet of Magic the Gathering cards.
Exactly. So trading cards, sticker books.
There is a difference, though.
Kinder eggs. There's all sorts of things that children buy into. There's an element of chance in what you're going to get. They'll probably want to go back and try again. That is gambling by some definition, isn't it?
Well, yep, there is, but there is a very, very real difference, because when I've been thinking about it, obviously, a bit this week, and like you bring up, sticker albums from when I was a kid, football stickers. Now, you would go to the shop and you would buy a sticker pack, and obviously its contents are random. But then you used to have duplicates. You would swap them with your friends. There was this physical ability to trade. And then once you reached a certain point, you could send some money off with a list of the numbers of the ones you didn't get to the manufacturer, and they would send you back the last 50 that you're missing to complete your complete your collection. There was a way to finish it. None of those mechanics exist with what we have now. You can't trade the contents.
There is another big element as well, and that's a really good point, Joel. There's a secondary economy to the physical chance-based purchases. Yeah. The other big difference with loot boxes is that these developers and these publishers have teams of people that are tweaking algorithms based on sales patterns and use cases, and they can do this on an almost minute-by-minute basis. And therefore it can become quite a predatory form of exploitation for those that are perhaps susceptible to games of chance. They're almost like you're saying, they're taking advantage of people with an addictive personality towards that sort of thing, which is obviously regulated within the gambling industry itself, but it isn't regulated in any way within the video game industry. So that there is that aspect that, you know, there are full-time economists and sociologists working at places like Blizzard to maximize their profitability of their loot box systems. You know, and I wouldn't think that happens so much with sticker books, honestly. Just saying. Probably not.
No, they tend to put one shiny in a packet, and then the rest would be kind of commons.
It's not like the guy working at the newsagent is getting all your deets when you buy it, and then sending it back, like, you know, phoning up the man of Panini and being like, right, well, Jim Bloggs just bought 2 packs of these, and he got this out of it, and that means he's come back for 4 more packets. Right, so we need to increase the rarity of these and these cards and minimize these and these ones. And that way we can maximize the sale potential of this pack of Premier League footballers. You know, it's not what's happening with the physical goods that we were talking about a minute ago. It is what's happening with the loot box systems, you know, in video games. If you wanted to acquire a specific item, there is no way that you could go and get it without
essentially putting in, you know, between 1 and an infinity amount of money to just by random chance get it. You cannot go onto a secondary market and pay a specific amount for this, you know, the specific item you want or anything like that. And that's the aspect of it that to me is makes the whole system exploitive. It's designed to absolutely bleed people dry with no secondary. It's not about collecting and completing collections. It's about bleeding people dry.
It's not. I wouldn't want to say bleeding people dry because that's inflammatory. It's the desire is to make money, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I mean, you know, in defense of publishers and developers, right? I brought this up a few times as well in the past, right? So development costs are skyrocketing. Everybody expects a very high standard of, you know, graphical fidelity, of audio presentation, of voice acting, of all of this from their games now, which means the cost of making a game is going up. However, the retail price of a video game has stayed static for a long time now, since the advent of the previous generation of consoles, since the 360s. That's where we got our £50 UK, our $60 US price point. And that's basically where games have stuck. Now, to alleviate that, we've had season passes, we've had DLC, we've had special editions, and now we've got loot boxes. And it's a way for a developer and a publisher to recoup these development costs and obviously to make money, to profit. And if these companies don't profit, if they don't make money, they don't please their shareholders, they go out of business, we don't get the games. So, you know, the other revenue streams are being investigated for those reasons. So I always pose to people when they throw out arms up about Forza and Destiny 2 and all of that with their loot boxes, and they go, this is disgusting. Well, all right, what would you do? How would you make a bit more money out of the consumer? And it's not, and I've often told by other people, they say, well, that's not the consumer's job to work that out. And that's fair. That's absolutely valid. But, you know, as a thinking point, Richard, I know you're often the consumer advocate on this show. What do you think?
I think it's about achieving the right balance. And if they need to put them in there, making sure they're not harmful to the experience that they're supposed to be supporting. And that's the issue. If loot boxes are included in a game, then the temptation is to make the experience of that game without loot boxes inferior in some way. Otherwise, why are you buying the loot boxes? So it does make me worry that games are made to be more of a grind than they ordinarily would be. They might have less content than they ordinarily would have. And until you buy a loot box, you're not getting the full experience, or you're not getting a fun experience. So if that's the case, it's a problem. If there are systems in place to make sure that the game works without having to buy loot boxes, and they're a nice bonus for people who fancy them, fine. So something like Overwatch is a good example, because all of the loot boxes are aesthetic contents. It's just skins and things like that. It doesn't really make any difference to me whether I have it or not, and I wouldn't be putting money into it. But still, the game works. It doesn't compromise the experience at all. There are other games where it absolutely will compromise it, and that's where I have an issue.
It's really weird. I mean, all right, another game that had some problems with this was NBA 2K18. Because everything's locked behind all the progress in that game is behind virtual currency, and you can either put thousands of hours in your basketball, or you can go buy some of the currency and get your unlocks. And literally every purchasable item, be it cosmetic or not, just upgrading your player, is locked behind that currency. And it's weird to me how pervasive these loot boxes have become, because I'm also playing WWE 2K18, and they've locked a lot of their moves and characters, and again, everything behind this virtual currency. However, you can't buy the virtual currency in WWE 2K18 with real money. You can only earn it in the game. But they've made the progress in the game much more long-winded by putting everything behind it. So it's like, so these loot boxes are here just because people like opening them? It's really weird. It's like, and there is a reality to that. People do like that.
So
yeah, it is. It's a little bit confusing, and I almost feel like it was going to be monetized, and then the NBA thing happened, and they went, "Shit, pull it out, pull it out." and they yanked it at the last minute. But it's really weird. But people do enjoy opening these fucking boxes, right? Opening card packs, opening loot boxes. There is an element to this the Skinner box mentality here. You know, things are flashing on the screen. You've got a big fancy reward. Oh, what's it gonna be? As you can see all the rares and the epics before you turn them over. And it's like, oh, I'll select my epic first, or I'll select my commons first and go through them, and then I'll look at my legendary and my epic. Oh, what's it gonna be? And people do really enjoy that. However, paying real money for this.
I like opening boxes and have stuff flash up. That's cool, but it's when it affects the experience, or if it's applied to a funny, unusual title where it just doesn't make sense. Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider was one of the oddest that I saw.
That was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Only applicable in a side mode, wasn't it? It wasn't stuff it wasn't for the main campaign, but it was for like the weird side arcadey version of the campaign sort of thing. And it was just like,
it's sort of like replays of areas from the single player campaign,
the challenge missions, wasn't it?
Rules applied, wasn't it?
Yeah. Potatoes.
So that
Very
was
strange.
odd.
I mean, Forza is a really strange one for me, that you've got loot boxes in a car racing game. And this is such a strange mixture to me now that it's Microsoft, though. You know, we're talking about all that game you mentioned, obviously, in Forza, heavily, strongly tied to Microsoft, at least a temporary publishing deal in Tomb Raider's case. Obviously, Forza is published by Microsoft. It's basically the way they're doing it with all their games now.
Halo does it,
and
Gears does it.
And honestly, it's going to be every game. Every AAA game. I suspect by the end of this year, we'll have loot boxes. That comes out. I mean, they've said Assassin's Creed's got them, but they're again not going to be purchasable by with real money. Only unlockable in game with in-game currency. So they're just everywhere. So me and Richard, we don't think they're gambling technically, because you always get something. They kind of suck, but you always do get something. Joel, you're on the fence. You're not sure. It is a complicated subject, that's for sure. Only made worse by things like Activision submitted a patent about matchmaking based around promoting microtransactions and things like that a few years back. Activision then came. Yes, I was going to say they say it was never implemented.
It's the intent.
It's the intent, and then were ideas taken from that were then used in other ways. We're talking Activision here, so we're talking Blizzard. And they are the kings of maximizing profits from Overwatch loot boxes, and that is one of the key reasons that game in a couple of years based quite those loot boxes is ridiculous. So every publisher and developer's gone like, well, let's fucking do that because we can make some proper bank. Thank you, Overwatch. So we got them to thank for that. And then, we've got petitions going to governments, and, it's starting to become a real thing that, parliaments around the world and governments are going to start looking at this as a gambling thing. I mean, all it's going to take is a few cases of I've lost my house due to all the loot boxes I bought in Destiny 2. And when stuff like that starts getting in the papers, this will have to be looked at more closely, I'd imagine. And let's be honest, the video game industry could probably do with a bit more regulation, couldn't it? Across many, many fields. I don't know. Complicated subject that is only going to grow and unwrap even further.
A completely negative thing. I mean, when they're done well, it's fine. I mean, Joel, you were talking about how once you open up these loot boxes, you can't swap them, you can't do anything with them. The Division does a fairly good job of that, I think, because any duplicate stuff you've got, you can break it down and put it towards buying more stuff. So I thought that was a pretty smart decision, and it doesn't feel in the Division like you're forced to pay for it. It does kind of regularly give you boxes to open as well, so it doesn't feel egregious.
The Division one's interesting though, because the Division didn't have loot boxes at launch. That only came in about a couple of months ago. They've actually put loot boxes into the game, so it's just like it's everywhere.
Why don't they have like a secondary market would solve this problem, that you could then trade these unwanted stuff on. So take Steam trading cards, for example, where you buy a game and each game has a set of cards, and you tend to get half of them just for owning the game or playing the game, and then you can trade them. And when you want to trade them, you literally sell them for like 5 or 6p, and Steam take a cut of like a penny. So why not have a secondary market where after you've opened your loot boxes, you can trade some other items for actual
because
money or more money towards trade, because people wouldn't spend as much buying loot boxes. Like
the legality of
I think it's people wouldn't want the items. I mean, it's different if you're getting like a Panini sticker album, right? You need every single sticker. Doesn't matter what shit football players on it. You need every single sticker to fill the book.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same with loot boxes. They're not there for collecting sake. You open them because there's something that you want that you're going to use, something practical. There's a lot of consumable stuff that comes out of loot boxes, and if you're too high leveled or it's the wrong build or whatever, some of that stuff is going to be completely useless to you, probably useless to everyone else as well. So you're not going to be able to sell it to anybody.
Also, like online marketplace systems in closed console ecosystems, never going to happen. Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo will never allow the reselling of goods on their platforms. It opens up a whole world of hurt when it comes to legality and fraud and all kinds of big legal problems. Steam gets away with it because PC is more of an open platform, but you'll never get away with that on the consoles, not in a million years. It's just God, I can just imagine trying to manage all that. What a nightmare. So yeah, I think yeah, Mordor. You can, for example, War. I keep calling it Mordor. Shadow of War. You can break down orcs you don't want and stuff, I believe, as well. And you can get like Mithril back, which is the in-game currency, much like you can in the Division. I think
that feels fair.
I think that's a half decent compromise. Yeah. Sometimes the amount you get seems a bit out of whack.
Which color mithril do you get? Do you get the silver or the gold?
Silver.
Yeah, but in the silver one you can't. Yeah, you need the gold stuff to buy the loot boxes back, not the silver stuff.
No. The silver stuff can buy the silver boxes. You can't buy the gold and the blue boxes with the silver currency. You have to use premium currency for that. But you can buy loot boxes. But those loot boxes, of course, don't give you the best types of orcs. Yeah, they only give you.
They'll be capped. Yeah.
There's lots of shit like that, but better than nothing. Better than nothing, I suppose. Should we move on? A couple of quick news stories before we get onto the games. Oculus Go got announced. Probably 200 UK coming soon. Fully included, fully sort of like closed VR system from Oculus and Facebook, which means you won't need a PC rig. You won't need lighthouses up around it in your corners of your room or whatever other weird devices you need. And it's just going to be, they're saying it's going to be between the phone and the PC in its power and abilities to play the games and give you the different VR experiences. But I'm interested because this might be, for me, my first VR system, because I've not been interested in the PSVR. It's too much of a compromise and too many cables and annoying things to hook it up. I'm definitely not into the idea of the proper Oculus or the gear or any of that, because again, I don't have that kind of money and I have to buy a whole new kind of PC. But this, as an entry-level VR experience, that's a bit better than just sticking your Samsung Galaxy in front of your face. Seems like a cool one. Seems like a really good idea. I'm up for this. Sounds good. What do you guys think?
It's not something I'd want to buy, probably, if it's an entry-level sort of thing, because I've already got PSVR. But if it's something that widens the appeal of VR and keeps the momentum going, because it feels as if there is still a momentum with VR. I half expect it to burn out by now. Yeah, I think so. There's still a good release schedule.
I don't think anybody's spoken about VR until this announcement in the last sort of 3 months.
So Sony have done a second revision of the PSVR. Did you? I didn't actually put that in the news, but remember a couple of weeks back I described that there's some problems with the current generations and HDR. That they've launched an updated variant now that resolves that. So they're seeing obviously enough faith in it to do a second hardware revision. Oculus Go, I looked at it. I'm not convinced it will be too much better than putting this sort of Samsung Gear VR or whatever, the one where you put your phone in your headset. I think it'll be remarkably similar. It wouldn't surprise me if it's built from mobile phone hardware, probably a bit more fixed and the slightly better lenses and that kind of stuff. So entry level, I think the experiences will be very simple and things. I don't think you'll get anything quite as immersive as some of the more hardcore stuff. But yeah, it could be interesting.
For me, it's like I don't want to put £500 down on a VR system when all I can play are shooting galleries and kind of half implemented horror games. I'm still waiting on that must-buy VR game. That game that's like, this is a real experience that works really well and it's going to make you want to come back to it for 40 hours. Everything else, everything just seems like, well, it's interesting. I've seen adverts of PSVR on TV, and they sort of say X hundreds of not VR games, VR experiences available now on the PlayStation VR. And it's just like, well, that's very telling that you don't even think of what you have on your PlayStation as games. You have to pick your wording very carefully because so many of them fall short of what you'd consider a full-fledged game.
Do you consider that
so I'm still waiting
then? Because to me, that's not at all. I mean, it's almost a selling point if it's not a full game. Mainly because VR makes me feel sick. But
yes, as we've discovered, all the games make you puke.
Yeah, but if it's a briefer experience rather than a full-fledged game, then that's fine to me. I would prefer.
It's fine, but I don't want to spend 20 quid on an experience. It's just a lot of those are like triple indie priced games experiences, I should say. So I'm not convinced, but I might try this out because Oculus and Facebook seem to know what they're doing, and they seem to be the ones innovating in the space much more than anybody else right now. And they're not innovating necessarily just for the super rich or the people with the most powerful rigs. That super rich is stretching it. I mean, you're looking at $2,000, I suppose, to really buy in at a decent level on this, and that's definitely doable. But I just don't see the point right now. But for 200 bones, and I haven't got to worry about plugging it into my PS4 or whatever, might give that a go. I'll give that a go. Right, last news story, and then we will talk about the games we've been playing. This was just because I was like, what the fuck? When I read this, it was literally one of those headlines. I was like, what now? What? Who? IGN have bought Humble Bundle. Just gonna leave that there for you guys to digest. That's the charity that puts together bundles mostly of PC games, but also things like books and comics and software and sometimes PlayStation games, and then sells them as a bundle, hence the name, at reduced cost. But then a lot of the profits can go to charity and stuff like that, which is a really good cause. I've bought probably hundreds of Steam games at this point via Humble Bundle. They've got a monthly subscription service, and they've actually just started getting into publishing their own shit. And that's the biggest query
that's the
when it
issue.
comes to IGN owning them. Yeah. So they're meant to cover and critique and review games, and they now own someone that publishes them. It's a little bit iffy.
Conflict of interests, maybe.
Just a tiny bit, yeah. And they've said they've said they won't be. They'll be very careful with that. They've said, which you would.
Said that. Oh, that's
yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with it now.
It's all good. And the weird thing is for me is the wording on this and the press release that came out about IGN's purchase of Humble Bundle. It's not Ziff Davis, IGN's parent company, have published Humble Bundle. It's IGN has purchased Humble Bundle, and that's really strange to me. Like why you'd want to put those two things together like that. But hey, okay, cool. I mean, IGN is clearly looking for other revenue streams. I guess that makes sense for them to try and stay on top as the biggest video game destination on the planet. And owning probably the biggest sort of third-party video game distribution platform on the planet outside of Steam and GOG. That can't be a bad thing, I guess. So we'll see what happens with this. It's going to be very curious to see how they cover titles and, I don't know, announcements from Humble Bundle going forward. But maybe you'll get an IGN Prime sub. They've just started. It's indie stuff. That's mostly being made available through their monthly subscription platform. Do
you think they'll just stop doing that?
No, I don't see why they would.
That's really interesting. Maybe this is with the kind of talk about the web advertising model having passed its best and needing to find other ways to generate revenue for sites and things like this. Anything that you can do on a subscription package to add value, that might lend some sense to this.
Well, IGN has a subscription platform already on their website for like no ads and extra content and stuff, and I imagine I can see that sub being bundled into the Humble monthly
exactly
thing. And then, that will just drive more traffic to the site, and it'll create a little feedback loop of money. But IGN have had this weird trajectory over the years. They were the biggest, and they were respected, and then they weren't respected, and they were mocked. And they've kind of in recent years, I think, pulled themselves out of that gutter a little bit, and they've got some voices there that I trust, and that are pretty decent, enthusiast press types. You know, but then making decisions like this, it's just like, oh, it's all a bit. It puts them all in a weird place again, doesn't it? But you know, it's curious. It's curious. Definitely keep an eye on that one. So, games. Holy shit, I played a lot of games in the last 2 weeks. However, I need to rest my voice a little bit because I've already done a lot of talking. And I want to know what Richard thinks of Evil Within 2, because I've also been playing it, Rich. I made an effort to buy and play some of these big games so we can discuss them today.
I did notice
Rich,
that you've
how's
been
Evil
playing
Within 2?
Evil Within 2?
Yes.
I'm not sure, you know. I'm not convinced yet. I'm not that far into it, so cards on the table. It might be too early to say, but
where are you
feels
at?
a
I
little
want.
bit
Have
shoddy.
you gone further than me? I'm curious as to where you're at.
I'm only at chapter 3, and I don't know how many chapters there are, but
20 something, I think.
Is it that many?
I don't
know. Chapter 3 is really big.
Yes.
So from what I remember of the first, and you tell me I reviewed it, I can't remember.
I could have sworn you did, or maybe you just talked about it.
I might have done. I know I played it a hell of a lot, and I did like the first one. But from what I remember, it was much more linear than this. I mean, there was a bit of to in and fro in, but it was essentially a funneled experience. This does not seem to be, at least at the part that I am at now. So chapters 1 and 2 were what I expected from the franchise. It is running down corridors, stuff jumping out, weird things are happening, and you're back into this scenario where you're like in a dream world. It's kind of like the Matrix, but a horror version of it. So you're plunged into this alternate reality, looking for your missing daughter, who is somehow hosting this reality and has got lost within it herself. So you've got to go and rescue her. Once you get into chapter 3, it becomes much more of an open world experience. Through me, because that's not how I anticipated this game going. And you start talking to NPCs and they give you missions, and there's dialogue trees, and that's not what you expect to see from a survival horror experience usually. So it's very odd.
I really like it. I like that though, to be honest, Richard. I only played the first one briefly, but I like the fact that it's a bit more open and a bit more like you can choose. I mean, it's still got plenty of scares, and the monster design is still scary as fuck and creepy and gross, and actually a little bit necromorphy from Dead Space. Some of them.
It is, yeah.
But
it does feel very similar to that. I mean, it's even got the workbenches where you upgrade your weapons. It does feel very Dead Spacey. It's just
I like the fact that your character reminds me of like what's his name? You mentioned the Matrix, didn't you? Yeah, Keanu Reeves, but more like John Wick. Keanu Reeves is what he looks like.
Yeah,
long floppy black hair and stubble. It's like they've made a real conscious effort to make him look like him, which is really weird. What is the fucking VR weird virtual world called? I can't remember. They've got a name for it. It's like, is it STEM? STEM. Yeah. Yes. And evil corporations, and it's. Do you know the thing I'm getting from it? Because obviously, the main creative force behind this is I forget his name. You might remember him because you're much more of a Resident Evil guy than me. But the guy who created Resident Evil up to number 4.
Mizuguchi, is it?
Yeah. Basically, this is like Evil Within is like the alternative timeline Resident Evil sort of 6, if you like, where you know, if he'd kept on making Resident Evil games, this is where we would have gone with them. And I kind of like that. I mean, it does feel like a successor to 4. You know, and I know Evil Within, the first one, was quite, you know, reminiscent of Resident Evil 4 as well. So it's got a kind of old school feel to it, but also a familiarity. But then the open world aspect, I think, is what really blows it out and makes it interesting and different. And I'm digging that. I'm in the same place you are. I'm chapter 3 as well, I believe. And it is a little bit. There is actually an extra fear to that, isn't there? Because in a corridor-based horror game, Rich, you kind of know, you can kind of guess where the shit's going to come from most of the time. But in an open world, you'd never feel safe in an open world, do you? It could be like coming from anywhere at any time. It could be in any house you go into. Yeah, it's really atmospheric.
That was one of the great things about Dead Space was that you'd be going down a corridor, there'd be all these strobes going off, there'd be steam blowing out somewhere, and you'd think, shit, something is going to happen down there. But it is always going to happen down there. Control over it. You might stay back for a bit, but eventually you'd have to go. This feels a bit different in that you can just run off. Something horrible happens, you can just run the fuck away and avoid that entirely, and maybe just go and do something in another part of the world. And it's not huge. It's not like proper Assassin's Creed level open world. That you've got that flexibility to just haul yourself out of a situation and just go and do something else, or just regroup and go back and try again.
The other thing I noticed early on is it's hard. Like, you die fast. You
need to manage yourself. You need to manage your resources and manage yourself, and a lot of it depends on stealth. So it feels a lot like Metal Gear 5 or something, I guess, in the way that you approach situations. You've got to be very careful to conserve ammo. You can craft ammo, and there's lots of raiding of bins and opening cupboards and looking in garages for pipes and gunpowder and all the stuff that would not be in a garage. But yeah, there's plenty for you to keep your eye on and manage your resources and that. And it does actually feel quite fun. It just feels weird to begin with, given the genre it's supposed to inhabit. But I'm enjoying it so far. I've basically cleared out that chapter 3 now. I've done most of the side mission stuff in there, and I think I'm just gearing up to finish that chapter off, and we'll see where that goes now, whether or not it funnels back in again, because we had that with the latest Uncharted game, didn't we? There was a few open areas in there, and that was sold more of an open world experience. It actually wasn't. It had open areas that then funneled back into the traditional experience, and I'm wondering if that will happen with this as well.
It might well do, from the things I've heard and read about it. I'm not adverse to spoiling myself when I play games, so I don't want to spoil for you though, because you're reviewing it. I look forward to reading your review, Richard. Right, I should talk about some of the games I've reviewed, because there's a lot of them. Let's start off with the weird one. Did either of you guys play Rogue Trooper in 2006?
No.
Yeah, I don't think anybody did, except perhaps critics who were sent it to review. Yeah, Rogue Trooper came out on the original Xbox and the PS2. And for some reason, Rebellion decided in the year 2017, time for a re-release. And they did that, and I played it, and there was one question rattling around in my brain the entire time. Why? Just why am I playing this in 2017? Yeah, it definitely looks better than the game in 2006, but that wouldn't be hard, would it? I mean, we've got like, it's high def now, so that's nice. So, you know, textures look better, but still shit. Lighting is better, but still very basic. Character models look nicer, but they're still crappy. I mean, at best, I say in my review, it's like a 360 game now. It doesn't look like an Xbox One game or a PlayStation 4 game, or probably even a Nintendo Switch game, which is what it's also come out on. And yeah, it was like one of the first games to ever have a cover mechanic in a third-person shooter, and it has like an auto stick to cover mechanic, and it's fine, I guess. But like a million games have come since and done it better. So it's hard to get excited about that. So I mean, it's a weird sort of piece of nostalgia. It's a weird sort of video game artifact. It did quite well critically, I guess, at the time. I looked back at reviews and stuff, and yeah, it was kind of well regarded. But it wasn't like, you know, AAA, groundbreaking, genre defining. It's a fucking 2000 AD property, and it's not even the one everybody knows. That's Judge Dredd. So it's like, you've got Rogue Trooper, like, who hardly anybody even knows who that fucking is. You know, it's the blue soldier guy, and his name's Rogue. His name's actually Rogue, and it's like,
that's his name. Is his surname Trooper?
Well, no, he's a member of the genetic infantry. So he's like a genetically modified super soldier guy, but he's not actually. Turns out they're not that super. They die pretty fucking easily in this game. And the game's pretty hard, I guess, and aiming is weird, because who remembers what games were like in 2006, shooters specifically? Yeah, they controlled quite strangely and twitchy and very kind of imprecise. It's got like this really annoying mechanic with ammo where you don't pick it up. You pick up scrap, and then you have to craft your ammo. So you're constantly having to go into like a sub menu to give yourself fucking bullets. And it's just like, I guess that was immersive and inventive in 2006. Now it's just fucking irritating.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, I guess that was depth in 2006. But it's not a bad game, but I don't know who it's for. I just don't understand.
It's still the same game, right? They've not done anything to upgrade it. It's not like the latest Metroid where they've bothered to do more than a reskin. It's just the same game.
It's the same game. It looks. The only difference is it looks. And I think they've improved the audio and the visuals, and that's it. It's still exactly the same game when it comes to gameplay. It doesn't even have a cool button like Halo and Halo 2, where you can switch between the two visuals. That would have been funny. That would have been awesome. But I imagine way more resources than Rebellion would have had to pull off. Yeah. It's an odd game. It's a 20 quid game. It's like whatever. But like again, who's buying that? Who the fuck is buying that game? But
you say it's only as good as a 360 game or something. It's on Switch.
Visually, yeah, it's on Switch. Yeah,
I guess that would be okay then.
On the Switch in handheld mode, maybe, yeah. But you're still playing a game from 2006, and it feels like that. It feels like a game from 2006. From the sort of hackneyed storytelling and voice acting and bad characters, and everything's very muddy looking and browns and greys and it was a couple of years before Gears of War, I guess. And it's like it's like a proto Gears of War in some ways, with the cover mechanic and the blind firing and the kind of future military aesthetic to it. Fine. If you're in the mood, if you have fond memories, pick it up, I suppose. But if you don't, there's literally no other reason to. I don't think. So we've lost Richard's. Was that because you were coughing up a lung?
Richard's pixelated a bit. His hair came back momentarily.
Anyway, Road Trooper.
Road Trooper, more like.
Wow, that's why he's a reviews editor right there. Bylines by Richard. Love it. I should probably knock out another quick one, which is another quick re-release. I'm just gonna bang out another one before I throw over to Joel for his main review. I reviewed Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen.
Oh.
Did either of you play that?
No.
Back at the end of the last generation?
Yeah, I kind of did a bit, but I don't know if I could say yes. I have played Dragon's Dogma because it's one of those you need to put 30 hours in to get a proper feel for it. So
I played it. I played it a lot back in day, and then I didn't spend like 20 hours on it this time because it's still, again, like Road Trooper, it's the same game. It's just this one has less graphical and visual and audio improvements. It's cleaned up a bit. The main improvement is the performance was a bit of a bag of horseshit on the original 360 version, and that's much better now. Obviously, there's a lot less laggy sort of framey issues and crashes and bugs like that. That's all been cleaned up in this new in this re-release. It's still that game though. It's the main things you'll probably remember from Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. You can grab onto big monsters and climb on them, a bit like Shadow of the Colossus, and attack them that way. And like mantle them and like climb all over dragons and like hit them with your sword or whatever your attacks are for your particular class. And it's balls hard in places, and it's kind of like a proto Dark Souls. It has that punishingly difficult kind of strategic, tactical Japanese combat, I guess you could say. It probably not that they stole the idea, because the original Dark Souls was early PS3, wasn't it? So yeah, that's right, isn't it?
Demon Souls was.
Demon Souls, yeah. So it would have been around the same kind of time period. But yeah, the tactical combat, and the combat is definitely the strength of Dragon's Dogma. Things like the story is just the most generic shit, and the characters in the world, which feels weirdly empty half the time, are not great. However, the monster encounters, the variety of encounters is great. The combat feels really good, and all of that is exactly the same. There's a really in-depth character customization, which is really fun. I created a purple-haired buxom wench to be my character for this particular review, and she's pretty awesome. Yeah. And it's that game. Like, God, like why now? It's weird. Remember we got loads of re-releases of games at the beginning of the generation? Yeah. From the last generation, because it was just like, quick, we need stuff to put out. And then it kind of quietened down, and we got
Yeah,
stuff specifically made,
HD.
and now it's ramping. Yeah, exactly. Even though it was already fucking HD because it was a HD generation. What are you talking about? And now it's kind of like there's a few more of them trickling out again. Like the developers are between releases or something, and they're like, shit, we need something for Q4, Q3, 2017. Quick, we're not getting anything else till next year. Quick, bang out a quick re-release. I mean, what the Dragon's Dogma thing is, they've done the work on the PC port that only came out less than a year ago. So I'm assuming that this is just very similar to that, and they just decided why not? Might as well bring out, on the Xbox One and the PS4. It's Capcom, typical. They do like their re-releases and their cash-ins, don't they? You only got to see how many times Resident Evil has been put out now, like on every platform known to man.
I have zero problem with that, Ben. I would far rather they get loads of money out of the same game 7 times than put loot boxes in it that ruin the game. That would be far better, wouldn't it? As if they could just rely on that revenue stream for the next.
I see what you're saying.
Generations.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, that is maybe could be better than loot boxes and everything. But yeah, it's fine. It's still a good game if you enjoyed it that time around. It definitely has some weird Japanese idiosyncrasies. But yeah, it's cool. I like climbing on big monsters and hitting them with my sword. Enough said. Move on.
I've heard that about you.
That's just the way I roll. Joel.
Yeah.
Let's hit one of the big games from the last couple of weeks. The big game, perhaps for the wrong reasons as well. Middle-earth Shadow of War. We have both been playing this as well, but you did the review that went up on the site yesterday, day before, something like that.
Yeah.
So, tell me your thoughts.
So, I was a very good fan of Shadow of Mordor. I'm going to confess I never completed Shadow of Mordor, but I probably must have put about 30 or 40 hours into the game. I absolutely was addicted to the combat system and the Nemesis system in the first game, and just playing around with those, gaming them, taking over all the characters, sculpting the enemy chain of command as I saw fit, just to make it fun. It was a game in itself. It felt very sandboxy. It was very free. I could just play and do what I wanted. And yeah, somewhere there was a story that tried to keep things fresh and moving on. So along comes Shadow of War, and I put this in and I've started playing it, and I completed the prerequisite story missions, and suddenly I've just found myself getting hooked on this combat stuff again like a drug. Just moving around these environments, sort of, there are these markers and mission quests that require you to travel from A to B and stuff, and I just can't move between them without getting in a fight with every orc I see and beating the living crap out of them. And then more of his friends turn up, and then more of these captains turn up, and you just end up in these monster brawls that can be like 30-40 minutes, and it's just heroic. I love that free flow combat system. It was the same in the Batman games. I just think it's pure genius. It is just so fun, and it's difficult and a struggle, but as you level up and you unlock more skills and abilities, you just become so overpowered, and it just becomes even more enjoyable. So on that game aspect, I absolutely, I really love it to death. It's it plays very much the same as the first game. There are subtle issues I find with the camera during combat can be very irritating, and moving around the environments is very clunky. I said in my review that this overloading of the A button in the Xbox specific case of just, you hold A to run, but you also, if you're holding A whilst you touch a wall, it wants you to climb it, and then you use A to climb walls. The A button does so much that it's very easy to, whilst you're running along, accidentally skim a wall, and it thinks that you want to climb it, and you end up doing something you don't want, and it can all be a bit clunky. So
like Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. It can get those bits can get frustrating, especially if you're trying to either escape from combat or get yourself away for a break, so you can go and drain an archer on a roof or something. It can all go very wrong very quickly. But yeah, this, they've made improvements. I love the introductions with the captains, the sort of the subtle speech you get. Some of them are brilliant, and this time they're I was just lingering around in a bush waiting to kill some people, and just as I creep out of the bush, all of a sudden I get dragged back and whacked around, and another captain's just appeared, and he's declared himself as kind of this assassin type, and he's been hunting me, and he's sort of like, yeah, I'm going, finally got you, kind of thing. and then you just end up in this brawl with. I can't remember those from the first one. I can remember it was always me hunting captains, but these times, you know, they even though you've got ones that mark up on the map and you could interrogate to find out information about more, you've got these random encounters thrown in as well. And then the game develops. You progress the story, which is, I find, so such a barrier to the way I want to enjoy the game. It's restrictive. You have to progress through certain steps before it drip feeds you abilities and certain tutorials which unlock new ways to do things and stuff. And that's frustrating. It felt irritatingly long. I can't remember it being that bad in the first game. I can remember progressing through the story, the bits of the story that set me free very quickly, whereas this one feels much more shackling, and it took I think it's a lot longer before you really get into the true sandbox of the game, really. And then as you get through it, they've added all these castle sieges. You start recruiting captains, building your armies. You can then spend you earn money from the in-game loot by destroying it, which you can then spend on upgrading them, preparing for these big siege battles and things like this. I just love that there's a core to that game that I absolutely enjoy. It is so fun. It is pure just gameplay. It's me, the controller, and just, you know, my input, and it's great fun. It's nerve-wracking, it's frustrating, but it's so rewarding. And then there's just all this stuff around it, all these other bits plucked from other games and genres that's just been mashed in there, that I just feel that it could just do without that. It literally could just, here you are, here is Mordor, here's a skill tree, here's the Nemesis system, go have fun, because there's enough there. You can make your own game. You will come up with stories that you want to tell your friends about and stuff like this. That's the enjoyment of the game to me. This story that they bolt onto it, which, you know, it doesn't really do much for me, but the introduction of an 8th ring of power, like, whoa, that seems sort of, I said in my review, I'm pretty sure that's probably a knife in the back to Tolkien, and I'm sure there are people who have read the Lord of the Rings book and are deeply passionate about that who will be really pissed off by this kind of, you know, sudden segue or revelation in the story and stuff. Like, I can't get into that. It doesn't do anything for me in this game, but that core, that combat is just amazing. So, you know, tell me your thoughts, Ben.
It's really weird, isn't it? I mean, at its core, the game revels in its systems, in knowing it's a fucking game. I mean, even those captains you're talking about, when they do their dialogue, not all the time, but quite often, they seem to even be aware they're in a game. Like, it's incredibly tongue-in-cheek and silly. Like they know they're a bit part player in a B movie or something, that they're coming on, nodding and winking at the player and stuff. And it's like, it feels like that element has been made completely separately to whoever fucking did the story of that game. Because the story is po-faced and serious and dour and fucking dull, and just, it's full of characters you don't care about. And my God, your character is just as bad. My Talion is the dullest, most generic fucking cipher of a man. He could literally be anyone. It could literally just be a white paper bag, and you'd get as much emotion out of him as you do in this game. The Bright Lord, Celebrimbor, is at least a character from the Lord of the Rings, you know, lore, and he's more interesting because he's got this backstory with Sauron, and he's the guy that forged the rings. But Talion, the dude he's possessing, is just a fucking muppet. And it's just like, I just don't give a shit about anything he has to say or do. I want to go like you and go kill some fucking captains and get into that meta game of managing all those interactions between them and that sort of stuff. And then it forces you to do this incredibly po-faced story mission to get to the next bit, to do the next interesting thing. And it's just like, it's almost like Warner Brothers were the ones over Monolith here, just making them do the story serious because you've got the license, you have to deal with it with respect, and you have to touch these elements and talk about these characters and do these things. Oh, and we need Shelob in there, and guess what? She's a sexy goth lady now. That's fine. She used to be a spider, but they're not very attractive. And it's just like, you know, what the fuck is going on here? Why are you even pretending to give a shit about any of this? You clearly don't. I mean, like, so just do the fun stuff. Like, the fact that loot in this game drops as big, glowing fucking video game icons. It could just be a giant question mark floating over the ground. It's like, this is the most gamified, gamey element in an open world game I've ever seen. It's not even trying to make sense in the universe. It doesn't give a shit. and yet you've got this story stuff that is just incredibly like badly adapting Tolkien's universe, and I just don't understand why you are dragging it down with that. Just be this fun, crazy bullshit game. Like, just go for it.
Did you ever have the problem where, and this is what made me feel like the loot was obviously not part of the original design of the game. The problem where you go through a story mission and it ends with a boss battle. You kill the boss, you see the loot item drop, then it switches to a cutscene which transports you somewhere completely else, so you don't even get to go back and get that loot. It just seemed such. I know what you mean. There are systems in the game that felt like they were done by different groups of people, like and so siloed and detached from each other. And when you bring it all together, some of it you can tell which bits were done probably by which people, because some have got some real care and attention, and others just feel slapped on.
Yep. I mean, like pro loot tip: upgrade your wraith skill tree all the way to the end, because the final bit makes it so you can automatically pick up loot instead of having to like push a button to pick it up, which means that what you talked about should happen less, though not necessarily every time. But yeah, the loot, that system does feel sort of bolted on because of the microtransactions we alluded to before, because the microtransactions in the marketplace and this are so sort of integral to the game in a way, and integral to their aftermarket monetization of the game, I should say, that maybe this sort of like loot system was like, crap, we need to put this in because, you know, Warner have told us it has to be there. So that yeah, I would say 90% of the time, loot boxes and microtransactions and all that shit, it's publisher dictated. I can't imagine any developer ever going, oh, I know, I want to fuck my player base in the arse as hard as possible. How can we do that? So I suspect that doesn't usually come up in the planning stages for a video game. Just guessing.
I agree with you 100%. I wrote that in my review. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel it is.
Yeah, I think it can't be any other way, can it? Yeah. It really can't be. I mean, the fact that the loot is, like I said, like big glowing purple or white or green icons, depending on the rarity of it. And it's just hovering there over where you killed the captain. And it's not like, oh, sword's on the floor, I want to pick up the sweet sword like in Zelda or something. It's just an icon. And then you pick up the icon and then it randomly will generate what you've picked up in your inventory based on the rarity of the icon. And it's just like, what the fuck, man? This is so weird. Hey, it's still fun. That core is still fun. Like you said, that combat, that fluid combat, I think is better than Batman because you get to cut fucking heads off and arms off, and then there's the nemesis system, and it takes the Batman concept and really pushes it to the next level. And it does feel so. You feel like such a motherfucking badass. But the sundry stuff is a real shame. Yeah, I do agree. Oh. Richard, are you gonna pick up more? I keep calling it Mordor. Why didn't they call it Shadow of Mordor?
I barely played the first one, so probably not.
That doesn't mean shit with you, Richard. Come on.
I don't know.
You just buy games.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
exactly
I just buy them, whatever.
Afford that shit.
I don't think I will. I mean, as far as open world goes, I've still got loads left to do. I've only just finished Batman Arkham Knight, so.
Fair enough. I was like 3 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I'm going to talk about a game now. Another big release from this week. South Park, The Fractured But Whole. Oh, it's such a clever title, isn't it? I can't get over how smart that is. I was really torn about this to start with. I started playing this game, and it took me a minute. It took me a few hours to kind of get myself into South Park. I still watch it every week when it's on. I'm still a regular viewer, but I don't think I found it like properly funny in a good few years. But I grew up with it, so I'm kind of just legacied in now at this point. I'm never gonna stop watching it, I don't think. And the Stick of Truth was really cool because it was this accurate, full-on representation of South Park, full of lots of little references and loads of like callbacks. And it was amazing. You got to walk around South Park. You got to be a new kid in that town and inhabit it and really feel like you were there. So because of that, it felt incredibly fresh and innovative. And that means the problem the Fractured Butthole will always have is that it's following up on that. It won't have that sense of new innovation that we got from the Stick of Truth. And that's the biggest probably detractor that this game has, because everything else it does just as well, and in some areas it's vastly improved. The writing is still great. Obviously, the voice acting is all, episode, TV show specifically accurate. We've got Matt and Trey and Matt. What are their names?
Trey Stone and Matt Parker.
Thank you. I was blanking there after nearly 2 hours of podcasting. My mind is starting to go a little.
Or it might be the other way around. I can't remember. It might be Matt Stone and Trey Parker. That sounds right.
I think that's right. I think that the second one, but I wasn't going to even try to correct you because whatever. The genius is behind South Park. They're still voicing it. They've done a lot of the writing work. And it's still just as sharp. And once I was into that mindset of South Park, there's been a lot of detractors around this. And I think the detraction comes from the fact that it's 2017 and that perhaps South Park aren't picking their targets as well as they used to. And that they're not maybe hitting the areas that some in the liberal media would like to see. And people in the right-wing media obviously just hate it because, well, they're not fans of freedom of speech, really, are they? So, it's a difficult place that South Park finds itself in 2017. And I think it's still trying to find its footing in this modern age of humor and satire. And the fact that they are just sort of equal opportunity lampoonists, that they'll go after anyone and everything because they just see it they just call it as it is. Because, for fuck's sake, the left are just as dumb and say as much stupid shit as the right just half the time. There's idiots on both sides. But I think perhaps some people would like to see them being a bit more constructive with their satire, a little bit more mature than they perhaps are. But I kind of embrace the fact that they're such buffoons and that they don't, let's base a whole minigame around scatological humor in which you have to do a minigame to take a shit in the fractured butthole. There are minigames for you can get on every toilet in South Park and then play a minigame to do the biggest dump possible and maximize your output of shit. That is where we are at. That is South Park. And if you're looking at this game that's like more than that, which is that is the first thing you do in this game. You were introduced to the new kidneys, sat on the loo, and you do the shit minigame. And that's them saying, this is what South Park is. We make jokes about going to the toilet. What do what are you expecting from us? And then once you understand the tone that they are going for and embrace that and roll with that, it's just as good as the Stick of Truth. It's just as funny as their best episodes. All the characters are in there. There's loads more callbacks. There's loads more. The member berries are in there from the last few seasons. They've got lots of stuff. PC Principles in there a bunch. But then all the old school characters you remember. And obviously, being what this is a sort of a direct lampooning of the superhero genre. So it's current in that fact. The fact that we've had, these connected Marvel Cinematic Universe for nearly 10 years now. And this is all about them. This is about the kids not wanting to be superheroes. No, this is about the kids wanting to have a superhero franchise, wanting to make money out of being fake superheroes. And I just think that speaks brilliantly to that subgenre, and it's very funny. And I really enjoy my time with it. And the biggest thing they've improved is the combat. Combat has been completely overhauled in South Park. Gone are the kind of the static face-offs that you had from Stick of Truth, and now it's much more freeform. It's kind of like a bit like Fire Emblem. So you have varying different grid sizes, which you can move around and position your characters. It's a bit like a game of chess because all your characters have different attacks and they have different buffs and vulnerabilities. So you have to think about where to use them, and they have different cones of attack. So they have different like radiuses to the specific attacks. So there's loads of strategy. There's loads of tactics. Your character, New Kid, can be customized. So he can have different types of attack across multiple different classes. So he ends up becoming this kind of the gap that you have in your team that you've like constructed with 3 other of the characters. You'll then sort of customize New Kid to fill the holes that they maybe don't fill with their classes. So he becomes this very kind of helpful, integral part of any combat makeup. And you can really play around with different makeups of the team and really try different things all the time. And it's really engaging combat. And I spent like 10 minutes on some of these fights, thinking about the best ways of buffing and debuffing, the best ways of like attacking and knocking back enemies, when to use my ultimate with which character to get the best result. Absolutely loads of strategy, loads more thought has gone into the combat than there was in the previous game. So, considering what you do in the Fractured Butthole, for the most part, the biggest element is combat. The fact that it has been refined, it has been honed, it has been improved, and that's where the time has been taken to really make it better, coupled with the same great writing, the same great voice acting, the same scatological, stupid, satirical, brilliant, wonderful humor of South Park. How can you not enjoy this if you are a fan of South Park? And frankly, the people most sort of being critical of this game are people that don't really like South Park. Or I read some reviews. I've not watched South Park in 5 or 6 years, really. I remember what it's like though. Well, if you're not into this shit, like, what the fuck are you doing?
I guess
super critical of it.
A lot of the references won't make sense, will they? If you're not,
Exactly.
if you haven't watched the past 3 series or so.
Yeah, and who's buying this that doesn't like the TV show? I mean, like, it's like, I'm gonna go buy FIFA, but I fucking hate football. What the fuck is wrong with you? I might sometimes have to review a game about something I don't like, because guess that's what I do as a reviewer. Or I'll give that to one of you guys because you do like it. That's only fair. Sometimes you need to try and put your head in that place. But for the most part, the consumer isn't going to buy a South Park game if he doesn't like fucking South Park. So if you like South Park, you're going to like this game. Enough said. Fair? Fair, guys? Any questions about South Park?
As a fan of the first, who has not yet made his mind up about buying the second, what would your advice be? Do
you like South Park?
Yeah, I'm a South Park fan.
Then you will like this game. It's got better. The combat, what they've done with the combat is great. It is so much deeper and more tactical than it was in the previous game. Now that might be a bad thing for you, I suppose, if you don't want more challenging combat. It is genuinely harder. One of the things, it kind of reminds me of one of the things that people were up in arms about. Do you remember when they showed off the difficulty slider at the beginning of the game?
Yeah.
And it was white to black, and if you play it on black, it's a lot harder because you're a black guy.
Yeah.
That's just a gag. That isn't actually the difficulty slider for the game. That is literally just a gag. When you're customizing your character, it's just a commentary joke. And then the only difficulty choice you have in the game is about the combat. You can either have it as normal or you can have it as like a simplified difficulty. So, I played it on normal, and it was a really nice challenge. I really enjoyed the balance of it, that you could lose, that you had to think about what you were doing and your positioning of your characters and the buffs, the debuffs, the knockbacks, all kinds of different status effects, depending on the enemies you're playing against. Yeah, loads of depth to it. Really, really good. Go on, Joel.
Oh, I was just going to ask about the difficulty slider. I believed I'd read that they'd come back and clarified that it didn't have any impact on the difficulty. It just you earned a lot less money the harder you put the slider on, and that was the only difference it actually made. Is that true?
I didn't try it. I didn't try it. I might have to now. If that's true, that's fucked up, but also brilliant at the same time. But that's South Park. I mean, they are offensive. They are, but that's the point. I don't understand people. There's a lot of criticism about people who are sort of like getting older and they're growing out of it. Yeah, okay, but it hasn't really changed that much. I think, there are good episodes and there are bad episodes. There are good seasons and there are bad seasons. But at the end of the day, the tone and what they try to do with it is the same it's always been, really. Just equal opportunity, fuck you up. They'll go after anyone for any reason. I don't know. I know, but look, I'm a cisgender white guy in my 30s. So, take that as you will. Take that as you will. I can only comment from my own point of view. But any other thoughts or questions on South Park before I move on?
I was just looking to see if they were going to do a Switch version, but it doesn't appear they are, which would be the perfect place for it, wouldn't it? I would love to play that on Switch, but I don't think they're going to do it.
I'd like to play every game on Switch just because it's awesome.
Yes.
But I suspect, I don't think Ubisoft has done a lot on Switch, have they?
The Mario plus Rabbids, I think,
is
their massive focus, isn't it?
Oh, of course, that's Ubisoft, isn't it? Yeah, of course it is. It's not. I can't imagine it being that intensive on the performance side of things. It's quite a big download, but 25 gigs, something like that. But Zelda's 30 odd, isn't it? Whatever. I don't know. Be nice if they did, but
maybe they'll come. Maybe because obviously this game's been in development for quite a while, and although Ubisoft would have known about the Switch behind the scenes, I can't help but wonder if maybe
they wanted to see how successful it was before just committing resources to a port. So maybe that will happen now.
Maybe it will.
It'll be that 6 months later thing that seems to be happening with quite a few other games. Yeah,
That would be nice.
There is always, I mean, Christ though, the Switch releases every time I turn it on, I look at the little news thing or go on the shop and see what's come out, and there's like every time I look, there's another half a dozen titles on the platform. So it's getting a lot of games. Like people are really jumping on it because of the install base being so high so quick.
It's the indie platform of choice now, taken over from what the Vita was meant to have been. This is actually doing it, I think.
Yeah, one of these shows I would like to talk about SteamWorld Dig 2 because it's very good, but I haven't played a huge amount of it yet, and I really want to dive into it. But yeah, I haven't played a lot of it yet, but I will get around to that at some point. But Richard, tell us about the hardest platformer known to man.
Oh, would that be Cuphead?
It would be Cuphead, but it's probably not even that hard. It's probably just hype, isn't it? You've already completed it already. One
No,
life.
I haven't. It is proper hard.
Oh, right.
I haven't played it that much, and when I did play it, I was playing it on a train, and that's really a bad idea for a hard as nails platformer.
On your laptop, this must be. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I just imagine you with your TV and your Xbox and a multi-adapter plug.
Yeah, this is a Xbox Play Anywhere title, and it runs surprisingly well on a 4-year-old Surface Pro 3. It works really well, which I was surprised by because it's one of the most beautiful looking games to come out in a while, which is pretty much the selling point, isn't it? But yeah, I've played through maybe 2/3 of it. I'm on the last area now, and it is hard, but not hard enough that you think, well, this is being hard for hardness sake. It's a boss rush game. It has to be difficult. The idea is you identify what the attack patterns are. You react to that and work around it. Eventually, you will win. And there's a good sense of achievement when you do. I've seen commentators say, why have they made it so difficult when it's such a beautiful game? I want to see the whole thing. And to me, that's getting it slightly the wrong way round. I think the beauty of each level is the reward for overcoming the last one. And that's what's pushing me on. Even when I get frustrated with it, I think, well, I do want to see what this next boss is because they're so well drawn and animated. And they're all different as well. There's not any that are just a rehash of the previous one. It always feels like you've got to learn something new each time. So I'm really enjoying it. And I think the difficulty level is pitched just right for the length of game there is. It probably wouldn't last you very long if it was any easier than this, to be frank. But it's good. Anyone that's not tried it and has some patience, a lot of patience, it's worth a go.
I am versed well enough in video games to stay well away from Cuphead. Because I would hate it. I would hate it so much. Though saying that, I really like Super Meat Boy, and that's a hard game. But I don't know. It's a shmup, really, though, isn't it? I'm not a big shmup fan, to be honest. So.
I don't know. I don't know. It's got the same sort of feel as Meat Boy to me, in that it's annoying. It's annoying for a long time, and then you do it, and it's fucking amazing when you do it. So
yeah, but you like Dark Souls, don't you?
I like Dark Souls. Do you not?
No, just that whole throwing yourself against something until you finally overcome it just sounds frustrating. But you know,
that can be a bad thing when it's just an arbitrary. Maybe I'll win one time and then it just happens. But when it's skill and you know that it's you that's not doing it right when you fail, that's fine. And that's the genius of Cuphead. That's the genius of Meat Boy. It does feel like your fault every time. So it's a well-designed platformer. Maybe a bit harder than people might want, particularly because it evokes like late 90s platforming styles. It does feel like they're taking a lot of influences from Gunstar Heroes, which is great for me, but it is quite hard. I suppose that's balanced out by the fact that you're only fighting one boss at a time for the most part, and even the longer platform sections, they're not really long. They're like 2 minutes or something. Back in the day, if you were playing Gunstar Heroes, you'd have to do the whole game back to back. There'd be no save points. So the challenge there was just doing an entire game without fucking it up. At least here, you've only got to do one boss.
Okay,
So-
that sounds like hell. Okay,
Yeah,
good,
not
good.
so bad.
Yeah. Well, talking about beautiful games though, from one that is getting talked about by everyone to one that is barely being talked about by anyone, but it's been completely missed, I think, for most people, and it's fucking brilliant. And that's Battle Chasers Nightwar. And you're both gonna go, what? What's
Not what? I'm opening a new tag in Google to look it up.
It's basically made by a group of people that I can't remember the name of the studio now, but I do mention it in my review. They're people that worked on the Darksiders games, who famously, the Darksiders games had artwork done by Joe Mad, famous comic book artist from the 90s. Doesn't do as much nowadays. Anyway, they left that studio. I want to say it's not Volition, but I want to say, no, maybe it's Volition. Yeah, not Visceral, it's Volition, I think. Vigil. I knew it was a V. Thank you. They left Vigil with Joe Mad to set up this little studio to make Battle Chasers Nightwar, which is a game based off of his comic book property from the late 90s, which was famously delayed. I believe at one point it was like nearly 2 years between single issues, which is long even for a comic book. Not the longest, but pretty damn long. And it didn't even go that long. I think it only went to about 10 issues, but man, the game looks pretty. It's got this amazing 2D art style in some of it. It's also got this fantastic isometric kind of 3D art style in other bits. And then it's got a third art style in the overworld navigation. And all of them look great and all of them work together. And then there's more 2D art when it's like characters interacting in conversation dialogue. And basically, you can tell this guy was a professional comic book artist because this is a vehicle for his art. But in addition to the art, you've got really it's got an amazing soundtrack, fantastic music, and it's got just brilliant presentation all the way around. And what it is so you've got an overworld map, you've got isometric exploration in smaller areas, and then it's 2D, turn-based, JRPG style combat. And I'm not the biggest fan of that. However, it's been a long time since I actually played a game in that style because you don't really get that many turn-based action RPGs anymore. And this one it's balanced brilliantly. The combat is fun and varied between your different character classes. You can make up your team of 3 out of a character pool of 6. You got I think dozens of different enemies to face, and fun, engaging. It's quite a small story. It's not that long, this game. You're talking probably about 12 hours in that area. And it's priced accordingly. But you can see the love and the effort and the work that has gone into it with every single frame of animation and every moment of gameplay. It's clearly a labor of love. It's a team of like 4 or 5 core people. And then they've done some outsourcing for various things, globally. Originally, it started as a Kickstarter. But because it's a game based off of property from a 90s comic book that lasted about 10 issues that barely anybody remembers, I don't think anybody's even considering this game right now. And it's going to be one of those ones that goes completely under the radar. And I hope people will give it a bit of attention. I think it's excellently well constructed, really, really good fun combat. I really enjoyed the characters, the moment-to-moment gameplay, the exploration, the overworld. It's all just top notch. Really, guys, you check it out. You're both literally doing that right now while I talk.
I was watching some videos on Steam. Yeah, I see exactly what you mean about pretty looking. That looks beautiful.
I mean, it's art style. Personally, I can't stand Cuphead visually. I really dislike how that game looks, and I seem to be in the minority. Yeah, I know I'm in the minority. I know. I didn't even bring it up when Richard was talking about it because art is so incredibly subjective. I just don't like that 30s era cartoon. It just evokes too many memories of overt or sort of not so overt racism for me half the time, and this weird bigotry towards various minorities.
Well,
whenever I see that stuff,
yeah, you're right.
I just imagine gollywogs coming out and being beaten up by men with pitchforks or something to that effect. It's just
Sarah
oh god, how long?
Telling you this, but when she saw Cuphead, she went, "Oh, is that a Sambo game?"
Yeah. I mean, it's strangely not something a huge amount of people are really talking about in reference to Cuphead because there's some real dark shit connected to that era of animation.
Yeah, you're right.
That's what, and beyond that, I find it quite disturbing. A lot of it. It's this kind of the weird anthropomorphized, animals and devil iconography, and it's drawn in this like it's almost made to look more friendly and cartoony, but in a way, it makes it kind of more sinister to me.
Yeah.
A lot of it, so I'm not. It just makes me feel uneasy. the visuals of Cuphead, just overall. But that again, it's totally subjective. I'm not going to blame anybody else for loving it, because it's clearly a lot of love and effort has gone into that, much like has with Battle Chasers. You can see the hand-drawn nature of a lot of the assets in Battle Chasers as well. And it's absolutely stunning. But ask yourself, are you in the mood for a tight, fun, fantasy action, turn-based role-playing game? If you're feeling that right now, because there's not a lot of those out there on the current platforms, Battle Chasers is where you want to go. Like 100%. And I can't remember how much it is, but I'm sure it's worth every penny.
Still the worst name ever, though.
It's not quite the most catchy name, is it?
Battle Chasers was the name of the comic, so he's
and then Nightwar's obviously this specific instance.
Yeah, and I mean, I mean, maybe you've not heard us, and we're talking about all these games, but damn, there's a lot of colons going around right now, which is the name I named the episode the way I did. Everything is like Rogue Trooper : Redux, Battle Chasers : Nightwar, South Park : The Fractured Butthole, Dragon's Dogma : Dark Arisen, Middle Earth : Shadow of War. I mean, it's like, why can't anybody make a title without a colon in it? The only one I can think of is Evil Within 2.
Oh, no. Even the way you've written that on the notes, it says Richard Evil Within 2. It's got a colon in it.
I added my own colon. Yeah, it's true. I did. I've got one more game. I've got a few more games I would like to talk about. Richard, I think Joel touched on Super Metroid last time as well.
Oh, you've got to talk about it. It's one of my favourite games of all time.
Let's hear your thoughts, both of your thoughts.
Oh, mate, I've been resisting buying this all week. Are you going to break me now?
How do you mean?
Like,
what?
I thought you had it on your list because you played it.
It's not on my list.
It says here it is.
It's on the SNES Mini. Super Metroid.
Did I put that on? Oh, I have been playing Super Metroid.
Yeah,
I was thinking
not Samus Returns. No, Super Metroid. This is why I want to hear about it.
That was amazing level of confusion. Okay.
Now we're past that.
Oh, there is a second page to these notes, right? Sorry, guys. Yeah, I've been playing Super Metroid a bit.
And we're done. Okay, cool. Well, keep it going. I know we're running long, but let's get power through, Rich. Have you got anything you wanted to say about it? I'm assuming you do.
I want to finish it because I've played Super Metroid a little bit when it came out originally, but only on a mate's SNES because I had a Mega Drive. So this will be my first time finishing it. I'd guess about halfway through at the moment. And it's reputed to be the pinnacle of game design, isn't it? I'm not finding it quite that because I'm finding it quite difficult to find my way around. The map system is okay, but you can only look at the area that you're literally in at that time. It does make you backtrack a hell of a lot to different areas of the map, and you can't quite see which one you've got to go to next. So it means a lot of backtracking to open up the next map. Is there anything there that I can do? No, move on to the next one. So there's a lot of that going on at the minute. But it's still got that amazing Metroid atmosphere, and it still stands up now. I don't know. I can't remember how old Metroid is. It must be 20 years at least.
Early 90s or early 90s, I think.
Yeah.
So I can't remember when it was exactly released. It might be 92, I think.
Yeah, so that sounds about right. So it's well over 20 years, but the sound design and even the graphics, the atmosphere that it
1994
evokes, it's still stands up. So I'm really enjoying that. I'm kind of holding out on Samus Returns on the 3DS, which I think you have played, Joel.
Yeah, I'm about 60% through it now. I'm just chipping away at it during my lunch breaks at work when I get the time.
So, yeah, I've been resisting buying that, and I want to finish Super Metroid before I do. So, yeah, that's fun.
Cool. Right. Well, one more game on Joel's list I spotted here. I nearly missed it. Ogre 2017. Unlike Ogre 1917?
Ogre 1982 was, I think, when the original was released. Sometime in the 80s, or maybe wrong. So this is based off a board game made by Steve Jackson.
Not the Steve Jackson of games, not the founder of Games Workshop, Steve Jackson, but another Steve Jackson from America who also designs board games, has been involved in video game development and writes books. So it's rather confusing. But yeah, this is a, for all intents and purposes, it's a turn-based strategy game. It's set about 750 years in the future, where this new type of armor has been developed that weighs virtually nothing. So everything's returned to tank warfare, and they have these massive tanks called Ogres that have armor that's about 3 or 4 meters thick, and they're just weapons platforms. And so it's about you have Ogres as well as different other units, and you sort of you go through various action phases where you can move and then you attack, and then certain units get special abilities after attacks and that kind of thing. So it's based off a board game. It's very evident it's based off a board game. I've played it for a bit so far. I'm working my way through the campaign so far. I'm finding the strategical element very interesting, because I enjoy those type of board games and things. So I like these kind of games where you can think out your strategy and try and optimize and move your units and maximize your attack and your defense. The user interface is a little clunky. I'm not getting on too well with it. It's very easy to make annoying mistakes, like move a unit where you didn't want to, or those kind of things. So that gets a bit frustrating on that side. There's no kind of undo, which is a bit annoying. And the tutorial is it introduces you to the basic concepts of the game, but it doesn't really introduce you to where all the information in the UI is, which is a bit frustrating. So it takes a while to understand, it literally at one point early on, it's sort of telling you like, this is how you attack a unit. And when you attack a unit, you can contribute, like commit 1 unit to it, or you can commit some 2 or 3 units to it to increase your chances of damaging. And then it's like down here at the bottom of the screen, is where it tells you what's happening. And you look down and there's just a few different numbers and various sides and some chance ratios and all this kind of stuff, but none of it makes sense. And they don't explain it. They just tell you, look down there, there's some stuff that tells you what's going on. So it takes you a fair while to start understanding what the numbers mean. So how you can commit enough troops to the attack to make sure that you win, but you don't overcommit troops, so you waste actions that you could use attacking other stuff and that. So yeah, it takes a bit of a while to figure out. It could do with a bit more explanation, and the user interface could certainly do with some polish. But so far, I'm enjoying the actual game behind it all. Is really good fun.
Oh, awesome, man. I know you're fairly early on in that, so I look forward to getting your review for that, because I like those kind of games quite a bit as well. So always good to get a tip from someone. I'm gonna bear another couple of quick ones for you. Can I knock them out? Yeah, knock it out. Woo! Because I don't think anybody is talking about these 2 games, and they're pretty good. Lightfield, which is a futuristic vehicle racing game. Kinda. It's got a very interesting mechanic that sets it apart from all its competitors. You have to hold down a button on the controller to stay affixed to the track. If you don't, you basically turn into a ship and you can fly around the level at anywhere you want. Which is weird. Richard, can you imagine that? Wipeout. But if you let go of a button, you could just like go anywhere.
Sounds
so what
like
that means.
Cheat that. So
well, you have in the races you have to go through gates, so you can't just go to the end. But what it means is that you have tracks which are quite non-specific, like ways of getting. It's almost like a little open world, which means you can kind of get from A to B as you wish. And what the way that the button works is it basically magnetizes you to the surface you're over at that time, if you're close to it. So you can do things like fly at a vertical surface. So as you're approaching it, you release the button and like kick off, and then you magnetize onto the vertical surface, and that becomes your racing plane. So then you're racing up the surface, but it obviously reorientates to be your ground. Yeah. So it means that, you have these quite... It's got a great aesthetic. It's this super... and music to match, actually. It's this future kind of Tron Legacy-esque environment.
It looks very neon, doesn't it? Yeah.
And it means that the levels are designed in a very open way. There are things where you can just... I mean, I did it once. I just thought, I wonder what happens. And I let go, and I just started flying around. And then there's this whole, there's all these, collectibles around the map in various areas that you can just fly to and collect, and every level has those and stuff, and that helps with your progression to unlocking subsequent areas and tracks. So there's, an exploration mode to it. And it's quite Spartan, and it's just got a striking look to it. And Yeah, it's a cool semi sort of experimental little game. I don't know if I'm going to write or do a video about it because it's just a little title I happened across. But yeah, I just thought, yeah, people should be aware that there are alternatives out there to Wipeout, and this is quite a clever one with that mechanic, and it offers some very interesting control kind of options. So that's Lightfield, and then I've also been playing X-morph Defence, which is this kind of tower defense twin stick shooter hybrid. So if you go all the way back to the Pixel Junk Monster days, do you remember that? Which was the first original. I don't know if it was the original, but the whole tower defense, but you're walking around and you can place towers as you wish, but you've also got some direct attack capabilities. It's like, take that idea and move it to like a realistic-ish modern setting in which you are playing as the evil invading aliens landing on Earth, and you are basically able to place obstructions and towers all over the map to basically change the pathing of the enemies as they come down. So that's one element that's kind of nice. You don't always get that in tower defense games. And then beyond that, it's a pretty good twin stick shooter, which also looks really nice with some incredibly destructible environments. You can like knock down skyscrapers to block routes, to modify. Obviously, in a tower defense game, what you want to do, the main thing you want to do is you want to make the route from where the enemies come in to your base as long as possible to give you as much time to do as much damage as possible. So by being able to modify the routes, you can really fuck with the humans that are trying to defend civilization from your alien onslaught in lots of interesting ways. And it works well, and it looks good, and it's, again, a fun little game not many people are talking about. So X-morph, not easy to say, X-morph Defence.
X-morph : Defence.
Is it : Defence?
It is.
Oh, well.
It is, yeah.
I didn't even realise, and yet... Is it light : field?
No.
I'm just no, it's not. Okay. Doing my research for me. I appreciate that. So that's two little games I wanted to give a shout out to that I was picking through my hard drive, and I was just like, oh, I don't think I ever played that. I'll give it a go. Now, WWE 2K18. The game with microtransactions that are totally unnecessary, but perhaps not something you can buy with real currency because of what happened with NBA 2K18. That's just total guesswork, though. This is better than last year. A little anecdote: I get more hate mail and abusive comments on my review of WWE 2K17 than I do anything else combined, because I was really hard on that game, and wrestling fans are nuts. To put it nicely, pretty nuts. But that game was fucking shit. This is better. It's still a Ukes 2K wrestling game, so it's slow. Hit detection is a bit weird. Reversal timing can be strange and not always makes sense. However, they've got a new character model system, so the in-game models look better than ever. Like, honestly, it's a real step up from last year. I think they look incredible. Lighting effects are amazing. The models genuinely look real some of the time. And one of my criticism last year was they removed sort of like real photography and real videos of wrestlers in favor of the character models in the game. Didn't work last year. That works this year because they are that much better. It doesn't seem to be as unfinished as last year's was. Like, there's a proper menu in place that doesn't feel like it was placeholder. Things like that.
Doesn't seem as unfinished.
It's like they got another 12 months of It's like they got another 12 months of development, Richard.
Yeah.
To actually finish some of the concepts they introduced last year, because it can't be easy. And I mean, obviously there are a lot of wrestling fans working at Ukes and 2K on this product, and they've got a yearly fucking, and it's probably not a massive team, right? It's not going to be as like huge as the guys at Visual Dynamics, the guys that do the NBA game and stuff like that. And they have it's a big task to do what they do. This has got the biggest roster WWE game has ever had, with like 250 plus wrestlers on it. It's incredible, the amount of wrestlers. It goes way back. You've got like all the current NXT roster pretty much, as well as all the Raw, the SmackDown roster. You've got loads of old school wrestlers, loads of different alternative versions of them as well. There's absolutely shit tons in this game. The big feature this year is that you can pick up wrestlers. I guess that counts as a feature. So how you could do like control holds on wrestlers to move them around the ring. Now you can pick them up and like go, oh, I'm going to slam you over the ropes onto the floor. That kind of thing. So that's new.
Oh right.
Um,
Not like pick them up in a romantic way.
Oh well.
Would you like to
Then
come out for a
play it.
date, dinner?
I'd ask Asker out. Did you know, Richard, that Asker actually used to work as a video games journalist for Xbox Magazine Japan?
Did she? No,
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So she's a proper nerd. We'd hit it off. Don't worry about. I mean, sorry, Rich, you're not invited, but she's coming out with me. So yeah, I mean, like, it's incremental improvements as always. I think hit detection's a little bit better. Like I said, character models are better. They've expanded upon the backstage environment, so that's bigger. The career mode that for your player is better than it was last year. It feels a lot less disjointed. You have a hub world sort of thing now, a little bit like the NBA games, but smaller scale. You go around, you get talk to other wrestlers. They give you side quests and objectives in matches rather than it just being like a menu that gave you those options and stuff now. So things feel a little bit more organic. It still doesn't feel like the real thing because it treats wrestling as a sport, which is strange. And that's the choice they've gone for with this. And I don't think they're going to move away from it. But, you know, that is what it is. There's more game modes. Oh, one cool feature now, which you can have 4-on-4. You can have up to 8 wrestlers in a ring at once. You can have like 4-on-4 tags, or if you're doing Royal Rumble now, instead of it like stopping at like 4 or 5 wrestlers, it goes, you know, the ring will get proper full of combatants, up to 8 different wrestlers at once, which feels a lot more like a true representation of what you see on TV, especially the 4v4 tag, because we all know Vince loves to put 4v4 women's wrestlers because he doesn't want to give them more time than that if possible. So if they put him in a 4v4 tag, they'll be out. You know, everybody gets to see their favorite hot, sexy lady, and then they're done. So, you know, that's at least accurate to the product, isn't it? So that's nice. You're not even saying anything, Richard. You don't care. You're dead inside.
I kind of don't care because I know it's a shit game underneath all of the nice polish that they've put on top of it. It's still bad, isn't it? I want them to just strip it back, make a decent game, and put like, I don't know, 20 wrestlers in there. I don't care.
Yeah, the core fighting mechanics, the hit detection, and the reversal system, they need to be scrapped and it needs to start again. But I don't know how they can ever do that on the 12-month cycle they have. Like, they'd have to skip a year, and they're just never going to do it, are they? Like, they're just not going to do it. And the sad thing is, I think 2K is very much aware that they can ship any old shit and it will sell to the fans. I bought it. This wasn't sent to me. I bought this. So, you know, like...
Why?
Because I got a good deal. I heard this year's was a bit better, and I am enjoying it so far. It is better. I'm enjoying the way the universe mode is presented. It's much better, and the career mode is much better than last year. I'm definitely enjoying it more than I did last year's. The year before, I really enjoyed the year before. But no, last year's was fucking awful. But no, this one's at least. I've fallen in the wrestling hole again, Richard.
Yeah.
You know, it was bad timing. The game came out at the same time as the Shield came back.
It would be cool.
I'm like,
it would be cool to enjoy it, but I don't know. It's work, isn't it? You're forcing yourself to like that, Ben. I'm sorry to break it to you. You don't.
I am kind of making myself see the good bits, but no, I am making myself see like the positives a bit. But I'm enjoying it more. You know, that's fair. I don't think it's the best wrestling game, but Christ, you know, when was the last good wrestling game?
I can't remember.
Exactly.
I can't remember there being a good one, really.
WWE.
I mean, there's
WWF Warzone on the N64. I used to love that.
Could be
an N64 one. They were.
Do you remember? Oh, you know the one I liked, All Stars, Rich. Do you remember All Stars on the 360? Which was that kind of cartoony, just sort of like beat 'em up style wrestling game.
Is that just the? Oh no, I'm thinking of the WrestleMania arcade machine. Wasn't like that, was it?
No, I don't think so. But that was good. All Stars was good.
Yeah.
Hey, look, Fire Pro Wrestling's meant to be good on the PC, but it's a very different beast. You know, isometric, top down, 2D sprites, that kind of thing. But it's meant to be excellent. I might check that out at some point and get it on sale. But you know, I watched the show and then I'm like, oh, I wanna go do that on my games console, like when I was a kid. You know, when you would see a movie and then you'd be able to play the game at home.
Yeah,
it's that, and yeah, I'm a mark for it, no doubt. But you know, I'm part of the problem. I know. I'm part of the fucking problem. And I bought the fucking deluxe edition.
You could just
Whoa,
play one of those.
Ben.
Oh, Ben, come on. You could play one of those like free-to-play WWE games on Android or something.
Well, fucking match
Match
4
3,
game.
yeah.
No, fuck off. I don't want to do that. That's not fucking wrestling. Neither's this, but it's closer. Anyway, that's all my games. I'll throw to you quick, Joel, because you've got a couple on your list here, but they were leftovers from 2 weeks ago, so it's up to you if you want to touch upon them or not.
I don't. The only one I think I'd bother touching on is the Solus Project in VR, and the only reason is because it kind of ties in a bit to what you were talking earlier about scary moments. I don't. Have you played this, Richard?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, there's just literally a bit at the start where I was downstairs. Everyone had gone out. I was on my own, so VR on. Lock the door because you don't want to get burgled whilst you're on your VR headset and playing away. And there's this bit where you have to run away from a tornado. And I run away, get to safety in this cave, and I turn around to look at this tornado because it's in VR. I want to look at the beauty of this thing as it gets towards me, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm hoping the game's intelligent enough to realize that I'm in this cave. I should be safe from it. I've got nothing to worry about. And like literally, just at the moment it's about to touch me, my wife got in the house and has tapped me because she's been trying to talk to me. But I can't hear it, and it scared the absolute crap out of me. I was like, like just leaped, yeah. Jeez, you can get so immersed in that thing that literally becomes so detached from everything else. It's crazy. And she was just like, "Oh, so sorry. I was trying to, I was like, Joel, like really loud, and you just didn't respond." Yeah, scared the crap out of me.
So not really anything to do with the game, really. You could have just been in a black void with like a noise in your ear, and you'd have had the same effect.
I think I can't remember if I talked about this before. The game so far it's a bit average. I mean, it looks okay. It's not the best looking VR game I've played. I know that if you play it, there's a mechanic they add in VR, obviously, because they change how the games work a little bit. So movement, you can choose between just walking or you can teleport to spots to obviously help with motion sickness and things. Yeah. And I think I told you this before, didn't I, Ben? So what happened is that because you can teleport, I actually skipped the first part of the tutorial about how to combine and craft items, because you're supposed to bash these rocks up to make a sharp rock so you can cut through some netting. But I skipped that because I just teleported through the netting and then went off into the world and kind of got really stuck on this bit where it's trying to tell you how to, you need to use your crafting skills to make fire, but I'd never learnt the crafting skills. So it got to the first night and I'm sort of in this cave, freezing to death, looking at my life monitor, just going, how the hell do I make fire? How do I create a spark and stuff? And it's all because I teleported through this gap. Oh yeah, I want to go back to it and play it. It's not boring. It's quite interesting, but it's not setting me on fire. But funnily enough, I believe they've just released a pro patch for it, which actually greatly increases the fidelity of the detail, particularly when you're looking at close things like your tricorder and stuff. So it might be the right time for me to nip back to it, actually.
Kind of looking for a new VR experience because I've not played on mine for absolutely ages. So I need something to draw me back.
It's a gimmick you spent money on to make yourself feel better after Donald Trump was elected, Richard.
Stop reminding me about Donald Trump.
I think does that. Oh, well, one more thing. Have you played in the episode 2 of Life is Strange yet?
No. Oh, is that out now?
Good. Yeah, it's been out this weekend, wasn't it? A few days. Yeah, something like that.
Shit. Right,
that's right. Play it even within 2 first. Wait, come on, Richard. Focus, Richard. Focus. I
wouldn't
think
have
that
been
brings
able
us
to
to
play
the
it
end.
anyway, to be honest.
No.
Sorry. Yeah.
Why?
You're ending, so I've shut up.
I was wrapping that, yeah, but you cut me off there, son.
Yeah.
I just thought 2.5 hours plus. I thought I should probably bring this bitch to a close, but no.
Yeah, do it.
Okay, right. So that has been a very long episode 33 of the Bxb'S Bits and Bobs. It was long because we had a lot to talk about, not because we were waffling incoherently. At least I hope we weren't. I might have done. I usually do. So that's episode 33. Please head over to the website, bxbgames.co.uk.
I think it's episode 34, actually. At least that's what the show notes say.
Oh, have I numbered it wrong? I was looking at the different numbering. Oh, shit. I might have numbered things wrong on the website then in that case. I was looking at the website. But
so this is episode 33B.
Episode 34. What can I say? After 2.5 hours of trying to wrangle you two, my brain starts to go. It's inevitable, really. So episode 34 of Bxb'S Visceral. Please head to the website at bxbgames.co.uk. Check out the written content from people like Joel and Richard, just to make themselves feel a little bit more wanted. Don't just go and watch all my videos on YouTube, because I know they're great, but like, help Joel and Richard out too. Otherwise, they'll just cry and quit. Talking about that, we're it for the Bxb Games team right now. Me, Joel, and Richard. So if you're interested in writing about video games, be they Xbox, PS4, Nintendo, iPhone, PC, VR, on your digital calculator, I would love to hear from you guys. You know, literally get in touch. Twitter, Facebook, various means, smoke signal. I'm not going to give you my personal email address because I know you're all just going to want to date me. But I'm married, so chill the fuck out. But yeah, just get in touch and we will talk about video games. There's a lot coming out right now. It's that time of year. Joel and Richard, do not relax, because you'll be getting more very soon. So you better hurry up and give me what you got before I get angry. You wouldn't like me when I was miffed. Yeah, Richard. Yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute.
The XB turning video games into work.
It's always been work, Richard. I have to work with you. That's nothing more work-like than that. Jesus Christ. Head over to iTunes to give us a rating and a review, only if it's 5 stars. If you use any less than 5 stars, I will find you and I will hurt you. And that's been the end of the episode. Godspeed. I love you all. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.